Hello and welcome to the MegaCast. On today's Cloud Solutions MegaCast, you'll hear from experts at Cohesity, Offsite Data Sync with Veeam, Druva, Red Hat, SATA, Nutanix, Rapid7, and Rubrik. Thank you so much, sponsors, and thank you so much, audience, for joining us on today's Cloud Solutions MegaCast event brought to you by Actual Tech Media. My name is David Davis, and I'm excited to be your moderator on today's event. If you haven't joined us for a MegaCast before, you should know that we at Actual Tech Media created the MegaCast event series to help educate IT professionals such as yourselves about the latest and greatest in enterprise technology to help you do it as efficiently and as quickly as possible without ever having to leave your home or office, to help you learn about the most innovative enterprise-grade technology solutions available to you today, to get all your questions answered, and to have a chance to win some very valuable prizes while doing it. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of housekeeping that we first need to cover. First on the list are prizes. This is a MegaCast, and we do some really mega prizes on these events. So I'll be covering the prizes as well as the eligibility requirements for the drawings in just a moment. Second, questions. We want this to be an educational event. So we have a questions box. Use that questions box and ask us all your technical cloud questions. Don't wait till the Q&A session at the end of each presentation. Go ahead, ask away at any point and time during the event. We'll queue up the best questions for those Q&A sessions, and we'll do our best to help you get all your questions answered. And we'll also have some poll questions for you along the way, so we appreciate your participation in those in advance. And then social. We want this to be a social event as well. I appreciate all the comments that come in. I see attendees socializing with each other. I'll be socializing with you, and I'll be posting comments during the event over on Twitter. I'll be covering the hashtag for that in just a moment. And then finally, resources. In the handouts panel in your audience console, you'll find a number of resources, one from each of the presenters on today's event. Now, you should know that this is a completely live event. Things can and sometimes do go wrong, but hopefully not today. This is going to be a perfect MegaCast. If something should go wrong, I encourage you to first try a refresh on your web browser, and 9 times out of 10, that will resolve any problem out there. The recommended browser for this event is Chrome, and if you have any trouble seeing or hearing the presentation, simply take the URL, close your web browser, open an incognito or private web browsing session in Chrome, paste the URL in there, and that will resolve any browser issues. Now, I said we had some mega prizes, and that is true. We have 5 Google Pixel 4 phones to give away. You can choose your color. These are the 128 gigabyte models with 5.7-inch screens. We'll be giving out 5 of these during the event, as well as an Amazon $500 gift card after every presentation. So make sure you stay tuned for those prize drawings. Now, all prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. We'll reach out to you after the event to deliver your prizes. You must be present on the live event to be eligible for the drawing. Full prize terms and conditions can be found on our website, events.actualtechmedia.com, or if you look at the handouts panel and scroll to the bottom, you'll find a link there to the full prize terms and conditions. Now, through the MegaCast and EcoCast event series, and thanks to generous attendees who have won prizes, we have donated thousands and thousands of dollars away to the selected charities you see here on the screen. So if you win a prize and you would like to donate your prize value, we would love to help you do that. In fact, on the last event, we had one attendee donate his Amazon $500 gift card to the Cancer Research Institute, which is a great cause. The hashtag for today's event is Cloud MegaCast. I'll be tweeting with that hashtag over on Twitter. If you want to do the same, right there in your audience console on the bottom, there is a Twitter icon. If you click on that icon, the hashtag will be automatically filled in. You can just type in what you want to say there. For example, I love, and then it will automatically fill in the hashtag Cloud MegaCast. The first time you tweet, it will perform the standard Twitter authorization where it asks for your username and password, and that's kept just between you and Twitter. Now, you can also follow Actual Tech Media over on Twitter, and you can follow me as well, David M. Davis. I hope to see you there. Reach out and say hi. Now, another one of the social media that we are leveraging highly is LinkedIn. We post all of our latest and greatest content over on LinkedIn, so make sure you follow Actual Tech Media on LinkedIn as well. And finally, we have YouTube channels, Facebook pages, and a 10 on Tech podcast. You can find the links to those on the top right-hand corner of your console. You'll see icons for each one of those social media services, so I encourage you to check those out. Now, before we get started with today's presentation, I first have a very short presentation, 3 slides on the state of the cloud, and then we're going to do a few poll questions. So what is the state of the cloud today? Well, of course, it varies greatly from company to company. But in my opinion, when talking to IT professionals out there in the world and from surveys and studies that we've done at Actual Tech Media, companies have realized that traditional legacy infrastructure in many ways can be inefficient, it can be complex, costly, and increasingly it's not meeting the needs of the business. But that doesn't mean we're going to throw out traditional on-premises infrastructure. We're going to make that infrastructure more cloud-like, and we're going to leverage the public cloud to create hybrid clouds to assist our on-premises applications, to migrate applications or data when needed, and to leverage public cloud services for things like data protection. So why is cloud-like technology so popular? Well, we're all clamoring for greater efficiency. Our companies are demanding it. The business needs greater agility, and so does the IT organization. We need to be able to do more with less. We need to be able to do things faster than ever before. We need infinite scalability. And we're much more attracted today to this pay-as-you-go or utility-based pricing model, which allows us to just pay for what we consume. And that can help us to move from this capital expenditure model to a more operational expenditure or the OpEx model. I remember going down to meet with the CFO about a very large proposal that I put forward and having to try to justify hundreds of thousands of dollars of expenses on IT hardware and software. With the operational expenditure model, it makes that conversation so much easier. Spending hundreds or a few $1,000s a month sounds so much more attractive than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the ultimate benefit of these cloud models are that they allow the IT organization and you as IT professionals to focus on the business and the applications of the business. And honestly, that's really our job. That's where we can make a real difference for the company. Provisioning new LUNs on the SAN and upgrading the firmware are things that have to be done, but honestly, they don't provide any business value. The cloud allows us to focus on business value. But there's also a lot of confusion around the cloud. There's multiple forms of cloud. There's private cloud, which you'll learn about on the event today. There's public cloud, hybrid, multi-cloud, enterprise cloud. There's software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Let me take a breath. Disaster recovery as a service, backup as a service, and numerous other ways to leverage the cloud. There are also great differences between cloud offerings. Not only do things have different names, for example, in AWS versus Azure versus Google, but administering these clouds is very different. The images used are different, and the architectures are very different. And then there's incompatibilities between on-premises workloads and cloud images. And finally, differences in management models between on and off premises. It's a confusing time for IT professionals who do want to leverage cloud-like models and the public cloud in some way, but honestly, it's tough to do. And that's why I believe today's Cloud MegaCast is going to be so relevant and so helpful to IT professionals such as yourselves. On today's event, you'll learn about the latest and greatest cloud solutions from Cohesity, Offsite Data Sync, Veeam, Red Hat, SATA, Nutanix, Rapid7, and Rubrik. You'll learn about hybrid cloud, private cloud on-site, cloud-based security, running containers in the cloud, cloud-based disaster recovery and data protection, and much more. We've got a great event lined up for you today. Let's kick it off. All right, we're going to kick it off first with a few poll questions. We've got 2 quick poll questions here before I introduce the first presenter on today's Cloud MegaCast. The first question is, what's your industry vertical? And you may need to scroll down on the right-hand side of the slides window to see all the different verticals out there, and I'll share the results of this poll question with you so you can see how you stack up with your peers on the event today. So I'll give you just a moment to answer that question. All right, I see lots of responses coming in. Thank you for those. Also, lots of great comments coming in from everyone. Good morning from New York, West Virginia. I saw India, Egypt, Alaska, Baton Rouge, Texas, Colorado. So thank you everyone for all the great comments, great feedback. I did hear one person say they liked the new look of the console. We did do a little tweak there on the console. So welcome any feedback on that. And let me share the results of this poll with you. And the results are in. 24% are from technology companies, 8% manufacturing, 4% retail, 5% media, 9% finance and banking, 7% healthcare, 4% higher ed. If you add up higher ed, state, federal, local, and K-12, that looks like about 9% there. So good representation from all different sorts of verticals out there who are interested in leveraging cloud technology. The second poll question is, how many people work at your company? Should be a pretty easy question to answer. I do want to point out that you can take the slides window and mouse over the corner, click, and then drag it out to make it as large as your browser will support, or as large as your monitor will support. You can also click maximize on it, but I encourage you to probably not do that so that you can still see the questions box there and the handouts as well. And it looks like 16% are at 10,000 plus organizations, 16% are at 1,000 to 2,500 organizations. We have roughly 23% at 100 to 1,000, all the way down to 8% at 1 to 25 employee companies. So good representation across the board. Thank you for answering those questions. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Teresa Miller, who is a principal technologist at Cohesity. Teresa, thanks for being on the event today.
Thank you for having me. As always, a pleasure. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, please do. Yeah, take it away.
All right. So today we're going to talk about Office 365 backup and recovery, and I'm taking the tone of getting back to basics. And the reason I want to call it out this way is when I imagine how we treated our Exchange on-prem environments, and we'll talk a little bit more about OneDrive in this session as well, but when we looked at how we managed our data in those environments, we were given options to be able to keep copies of our data. There were redundancy options, but many of us made the decision to still have a real backup and recovery option for that data. So we're going to dive into essentially a few things today that kind of support that mindset. So one, we're going to start out by talking about that enterprise cloud journey, dive into some of the myths and help with that mindset. Also going to dive into Exchange Online and OneDrive considerations, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how Cohesity can help simplify data protection. So the enterprise cloud journey has definitely changed in the recent years. Many of us are doing cloud-first approaches. A lot of us are still maintaining our on-prem environments, and that leaves us in very much of a hybrid mode. So as we embark on this new journey, I did some research, and I wanted to call out some statistics for you because I think it impacts how we protect that data. Again, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, but more specifically cloud. So one, a new business will fall victim to ransomware every 11 seconds by 2021, according to cybersecurity venture predictions. That's pretty high, and many of you think, well, we're talking about cloud. Do I care? That's what we're going to uncover here today. And then, according to Our World in Data, there were almost 300 reported national disasters in 2018. So how we protect our data from the unknown is a big consideration here today as well. Now, as it relates to email, in 2019, phishing emails have increased 109% over 2017. So we need to really, really have our heightened senses up to protect our users. And any form of a data disaster can cost $5,600 per minute, according to Gartner. I don't know about your enterprise, but I think most enterprises don't really want to sacrifice that type of money just to a form of data disaster. So much less can they afford it. So anyways, keep those things in mind. Now, we started talking a little bit about the enterprise cloud journey, and many of us are going to sit with a lot of on-prem data still going forward. Some of you are probably saying we are cloud first the whole way. As I talk to people, once in a while I'll get somebody that says, yes, we are actually all cloud today. I think that is amazing, but I think most of us are going to sit in between. I think hybrid is kind of that end-all state. Some things will work well in the cloud, some won't. So that leads us to SaaS and where that data responsibility lies. So this particular scenario that I have on the screen is something that happened to me. So I was not on the support desk, but our support desk received a call from a C-level executive assistant, and we learned that a critical email message from about a year ago couldn't be located. So after some research and figuring things out, of course, we learned that it was inadvertently fat finger deleted. And so that's where I came in because the support desk didn't unfortunately have the tool sets to manage that. It had to be escalated. So within our Office 365 deployment, we've done minimal on the data protection side. Like Microsoft offers you many different settings and things that you can put in place. The only change we had really made was that we had changed the deleted item retention from the base 14 days to 30. So again, this is something that was deleted several months ago. It was completely useless. That setting was not helpful in any way, shape, or form to us. So we learned some critical lessons here, right? So one, we didn't have a backup that could support recovering that very important message. But we also didn't take advantage of some of the Office 365 policies that could have been in place that might have also helped. So, I certainly don't want that to become you, and that's why I share it. Hopefully you've not experienced anything like that. And so we're going to talk about how to prevent that in just a moment. One more thing on data responsibility before we dive into what some of those settings might look like is I think it's important to understand what you're responsible for as the customer as opposed to what your cloud provider is going to help you with in a data disaster situation. So you as the SaaS customer, here are the risks that you're responsible for. So user error, like in my example, we were responsible for figuring out how to get that data back, having the right settings in place or having the right backup mechanism to protect it. In addition to that, you're responsible for any potential security issues. So if there's ransomware, phishing, viruses that impact any of your data, whether it's Exchange Online or OneDrive, you're responsible for making sure you can restore that data in varying ways. And I like to call one other thing out on here from the ransomware perspective. Ransomware, I think we instantly go to the desktop or the server in terms of the types of attacks we've seen. But there's a recording. There's a company called KnowBe4, and Kevin Mitnick specifically did a video where he shows ransomware affecting a mailbox. Now, this was something he staged to show that it could happen. And so while I don't hear about this happening a lot in the wild, know that it's possible. So how would you handle a situation where multiple mailboxes were impacted by ransomware? You need a way to recover. And then finally, application usage. So back to the Exchange Online example, Outlook is your application, but you kind of define how the users use the system. So I know specifically for me in many enterprises, I had calendaring rules, right? Because the rules of calendaring, like the top 5 tips to make sure meetings didn't go corrupted, you know, it was my responsibility, my team's responsibility to make sure that the users had the best experience as it related to the application usage as well. Now, the SaaS provider, and really any SaaS provider, they're going to be responsible for the platform issues, things like infrastructure failures, application failures, and disasters that kind of fall behind the scenes. Because remember, we're not managing, at least in the case of Office 365, we're not managing those servers anymore. Your cloud provider is. So data protection does not fall solely on the SaaS provider. It is a shared responsibility for everybody at the table. So how do you protect yourself? As I mentioned, there are settings within Exchange Online and OneDrive that will help protect your data. But there are some limitations with that. I noticed as we were talking about size of organization during your poll today, many of you work for really large enterprises. And so your rules of engagement are often different, and much of what is offered here may not be enough. The other exception I find in this as well is publicly traded companies often make commitments to their shareholders. And so also understanding what you get and how it works can be helpful to make sure you make the right commitments. So Exchange Online, here is what you get as options. So essentially, you get deleted from a deleted account and mailbox perspective, you get 30 days. I know some enterprises like to keep their information and their accounts much longer. Some of you may be in healthcare, where you also deal with, fellows who are coming and learning. They kind of come and go. You might have students. Some of you are in education, and you don't want these accounts to be deleted after 30 days. So things to consider there. The other item is the deleted item recovery. Now, I touched on this during my real-world example where that fat finger deletion occurred. By default, deleted item recovery is 14 days, and the max is 30. I know in my Exchange on-prem environments, I often had this set at 90 because it empowered my users to go back as far as those 90 days to be able to pull out any accidental deletions that may have occurred. So here you can only do 30. That is it. The other thing you may have heard me talk about during that real-world example was policy. So there's 2 different ways to deal with that. One, you have litigation hold where you can put a freeze on the mailbox. And then the policy piece is that retention policy. You can do these separate from each other. They're not, you don't do them together. Essentially, both will allow you to keep mail for longer periods of time. Where I find them to be a little bit tricky is on how to get back to a recovery point and how to control the recovery time. So the first thing is the recovery time. In order to get your data out, if you use these processes, is you're going to create a new case in your legal and compliance e-discovery area. Once you get that case going, there's like a search process that occurs in the background. This in itself can take hours, and I've even had it fail on me, and I've had to start over again. And this was like, for me, it was a one-off. It was not a mass situation, but having to wait hours just for one, in a mass situation, that could become a challenge. Now, ultimately, what ends up happening here is you have 9 steps. There are 9 steps to actually completing this process, and in the end, you end up with a PST file. So I now have waited hours potentially. I have my export, and now the data is in a PST. It's not even back in the mailbox I want it in. So again, it comes down to those recovery times and recovery points. What do I really want? Now let's take a look at OneDrive. So as it relates to OneDrive, we get a little bit more in terms of how far back we can go. A user can recover a deleted file or folder back 93 days, which is pretty nice, a few months. And beyond that, the administrator needs to go into the site collection recycle bin, and they can do that for an additional 30 days. OneDrive also offers a point-in-time recovery back up to 30 days. They did this for ransomware specifically, but oftentimes that still may not be enough. Ransomware will plant itself and kind of sit dormant until it's ready to attack. So you may need to go back further than that. And then the other thing I want to call out that you get with OneDrive, before you set up your OneDrive, you do have the ability to set an expanded account retention option. And that date is actually pretty infinite, but you have to have done it before the OneDrive was ever set up. So in a way, I know many of us already have our OneDrive set up. This no longer really becomes an option for us. And then the image on the right is just the site settings for the site collection recycle bin. I just wanted you to see that there's a different location for the administrator to go to be able to manage that. So ultimately, you have multiple different points of management in the OneDrive console. So in terms of how your mindset shift should be here, I really want you to consider what I've shared with you thus far, and let's go ahead and take a look at this list. So everything I've showed you so far has been cloud only. So if you have an on-prem and cloud data requirement, that hybrid model, then having an Office 365 location for Exchange Online, and then another location or two for OneDrive, and then a separate backup and recovery product for on-prem can kind of create a little bit of almost chaos, right? Because you have multiple different points of management. So to the next point then, if you need a single pane of glass for hybrid cloud management, you may also want to look to a third-party solution. Next, in terms of recovery points, know what recovery point objectives you have. With a backup and recovery solution that is backing things up daily or hourly or even down to the minute, if you have different requirements for different users, you can definitely get pretty granular to meet whatever your core objectives are in that space. And then also ensuring you can meet the recovery times, right? Not waiting hours to even see if the collection of data you requested is going to be what you are looking for. Really, it can come back to you with the right third-party solution in a matter of seconds. And recovery can be, minutes. It can be very, very quickly. Are you interested in ransomware protection? Is this important to you to be able to recover back to a point in time should something like that occur? I know I've seen an uptick in enterprises that seem to be affected by ransomware. I've had many conversations with former colleagues who work in totally different places than of course we used to, and this is real. This is happening on a regular basis, unfortunately. Office 365 data isolation for legal and compliance. This especially, I think, comes out for medium-sized to large organizations. So yes, we have our Office 365 cloud, but do you have to keep a separate copy of that data somewhere else for legal and compliance purposes? You would definitely need to look at a third party to accomplish that. And then lastly, do you have access to your data for exit planning? I know most of us, we have this mindset of making a commitment to the cloud. When we go there, we pretty much plan to stay, but sometimes things change. And so with the right third-party backup and recovery solution, you may also have some different options for exit planning should that need to occur. So as I'm wrapping up my presentation here, I have just probably about 4 more slides. So let's go ahead and talk now about Cohesity and how we can help you with your hybrid cloud journey and your Office 365 and OneDrive deployments as well. So just briefly a little bit about us. I know having been in the admin shoes for many, many years, I always wanted to know who I was potentially working with. And so that's why I share this with you today. So we were founded in 2013 by Dr. Mohit Aaron, who was one of the co-founders of Nutanix and was also the lead on the Google file system. Our software growth to date has been 100% year over year. We have some fantastic investors, and we have been winning many awards. These are just a couple, but it's been a very, very exciting time for us. So Cohesity for your cloud journey. We are cloud native. We're not a bolt-on solution. Our product was developed and created when cloud existed. So it's efficient and globally efficient in a way that will work for both your on-prem and cloud environments specifically. We do offer you one platform for universal protection. Again, that hybrid cloud environment, we can protect it all. And that allows you to manage less, meaning you have one console for everything. You don't have to manage your Office 365 separate from your OneDrive, separate from your Azure, separate from your on-prem. One solution for everything with a similar process for backup and recovery for all. In terms of flexibility, our solution, we do have an on-prem solution and we have a cloud solution. Our on-prem solution is available in hardware as well as virtual. We can, regardless of whether or not you choose the on-prem solution or the cloud solution, you can back up your Office 365 environment to it. So some of you may even be customers already. If you have an on-prem solution, you can, as long as you're running the right version of the software, you'll be able to do your backups there if you like. So lots of flexibility. The other couple items I want to call out here, one is our global search and restore. You literally can type in the name of a mailbox and it'll come back in like a second. It's super fast, and it will search all of your Cohesity environment for that information. And the other thing I like to call out, in terms of how we do our subscription licensing, we lower costs for you because we're storage-based, and that storage is based on the deduplicated and compressed amount of data, not the full data. So big benefit for you as a customer. And then to wrap things up, just a high-level summary. I'm going to just kind of take a look here with you, the Cohesity side, but feel free to glance at the legacy backup and cloud native backup columns as well. So Cohesity is cloud native, born in the cloud. We are globally efficient across your workloads. We give you one platform for everything, meaning that you get universal protection with the ability to manage less and innovate more. So with that, I'm going to actually open this up if we have time for questions. Do we have any time, or are we at a point where we might have to take them offline?
No, we do have some time for questions, Teresa. Yeah, great presentation. Okay. While we do some Q&A, I'm just going to bring up this poll question slide for the audience, and we'll just leave that up. The question is, what additional information would you like about the Cohesity solution? And it's a multi-select question. So let's see. First question that came in here, they're asking about, is the Cohesity solution PCI and DSS compliant?
PCI and DSS, I don't know what industry that is for, but basically I'm trying to think what industry that's for. I'd almost like to take that off the line. I mean, but basically, I think that's cloud specific. So in terms of our ability to protect based on those particular regulations, I mean, if the cloud supports it, if that particular cloud like Office 365, as well as the Azure, I believe it's yes. But let's go ahead and take that offline. I'd rather make sure I understand it 100%.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll get back to that. Another question here, just about the architecture. I mean, is Cohesity, I know you said it's in the cloud, so can you deploy Cohesity without on-premises hardware, or exactly how does that work?
Yeah, so I can expand on that further. So we have several different offerings, and I'll start with the cloud. So essentially we have a cloud edition of our software that would be installed into your, in this case, your Azure tenant. But we do work with other clouds as well. So you can definitely install the cloud edition. And that will even back up on-prem stuff. So basically, there's that. Now, on-prem, we have an appliance. We have the virtual edition for both Hyper-V and VMware. And we also have, if you're a Cisco or HPE shop, our software will run on certain models of their appliances. So if that's a requirement by your enterprise, we can function there as well. So essentially, if you have a Cohesity cluster, which we do require 3 nodes for redundancy, you can back up any of your data, cloud or on-prem, from any of those devices. Now, there may be infrastructure reasons or recovery time reasons to not do it that way, but we do offer that flexibility.
Nice, nice. Well, that's very flexible. Another question here they're asking about is, say I have a hybrid solution, like on-premises and in the cloud, and we do a search. They're asking, will the results be based on both locations? Kind of a unified search?
Yeah. So we do have a way to kind of filter that a little bit more concisely for you. But I mean, so I think the high level answer is yes. So all Cohesities can be searched from the same console. But then say, for example, you go into our Recover option. Under Recover, I can choose virtual machine, for example, or I can choose Office 365, or I can choose Linux or database. And we didn't even touch on databases, but and basically, and there's more, all the different flavors. So that essentially acts as a filter, right? So I kind of know what I'm looking for. And if it's Office 365, I choose Office 365. And then from within that individual console for Office 365, then your recovery options would occur from within that platform across the board. So any of your protection jobs for Office 365 will be searchable.
Very nice. I like that. Another question here, can I use your product for data migration for M&A of Office 365 data?
Yes. So both Exchange Online and OneDrive, we do have the ability, as long as you have the Office 365 tenant registered as a source and you have an account with permissions to both tenants, a global administrator account, you will be able to migrate that data across tenants. So mergers and acquisitions happen all the time, so it's a really nice feature. I think, the other use case too is I've actually seen enterprises change domain names, and in that case you may stand up another tenant. You can definitely leverage our system for moving that data.
Very nice, very nice. Another question, does your product work to back up other clouds?
Yes, we do back up other clouds. We are able to back up, in addition to Office 365, I think I mentioned Azure during one of the other answers. We also can do AWS as well as Google. And we also have the ability to attach via like the S3 protocol. So our solution can even do things like archiving. Like if you have on-prem, we can archive off to the cloud, for example. We also do disaster recovery, and it's those protocol options that make that happen.
Got it. Okay. Well, very nice. It looks like that's all the time we have for questions, but it's been great having you on the event today. Again, Teresa, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You have a great rest of your day.
You too. For more information on Cohesity, of course, visit cohesity.com. Also, check out the handout that's available there in the Handouts panel. It's entitled Bringing Enterprise-Grade Capabilities to the Public Cloud for Secondary Data. So make sure that you download that PDF, and you can read it after the event. All right, it's now time for our first Amazon $500 gift card giveaway. That's going to Dennis Davison from Texas. Congratulations, Dennis Davison from Texas. A lot more prizes to give away, so stay tuned. In fact, we have another gift card and our second gift card, coming up after this presentation. All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Travis Evans, a sales engineer at Offsite Data Sync. Travis, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, Travis. Take it away.
Great, thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Travis Evans, and I'm a sales engineer with Offsite Data Sync, and we are a Platinum Veeam cloud service provider. So what that means is we offer a lot of business continuity solutions based around Veeam-powered technologies. So today, I'm going to be talking about some of the various as-a-service offerings that customers tend to come across and have questions around regarding when certain solutions are the right fit for data protection and business continuity. And we've titled this session Confusion as a Service because there are so many as-a-service type offerings, whether it's backup as a service, disaster recovery as a service, even infrastructure or a software as a service. Those types of workloads, those types of services and configurations can be very confusing as to what will actually meet your business needs when it comes to data protection or just overall business continuity decisions. So first, and really probably the most common and the easiest to get into, is backup as a service. So there are a lot of reasons that this is a best fit solution, and here in a moment we'll dive more into that, but really it's about just kind of ensuring recoverability of just your data as a whole, really covering your most important data sets, your applications, workloads, various systems, whether they're virtual or physical, and just making sure you do have some sort of protection or backup, either on-prem or on-prem and cloud-based as well, to a provider like Offsite Data Sync. Those types of considerations really tend to fall in line with, meeting compliance regulations or things like that. So that's why it's probably the most common. And again, it is one of the easier services to kind of test out. Second would be disaster recovery as a service. And this is usually a bigger project and undertaking by an organization or a business. So it's great to consider DR experts like Offsite Data Sync with these types of services, because again, that type of service is meant to facilitate a fast recovery, so very low RTO of your critical workloads, which might be only some of your environment and workloads and apps and systems, or it might be everything. So just depending on business needs and cost, there's some consideration there around fine-tuning disaster recovery as a service, in the event of whether it's a critical event like some sort of weather event, or if it's a critical event based around some sort of external threat like a hacking situation or ransomware. And third, that we're going to cover is when is it the best fit to consider infrastructure as a service, really kind of offloading those on-prem workloads to cloud-based workloads and using a hosting provider such as Offsite Data Sync. And then really also I would add to this, some SaaS workloads, so software as a service workloads like Office 365, because again, looking to address and meet business continuity concerns and needs. So let's take a more in-depth look at each service. So backup as a service. And again, like I mentioned, this is, as you see on there, this is really a great way for organizations to kind of test the as a service waters. So maybe you're using, in this case, you're using Veeam to back up your environment and your workloads on-prem, but then you're probably looking to more comply with the 3-2-1 best practice. So 3 copies of your data, 2 forms of media, one of those being offsite. So if you've been around business continuity or disaster recovery conversations at all, you've probably come across that rule, that best practice consideration. So meeting that on-prem can be very expensive. And so that's where it really comes in nice to have a cloud provider such as Offsite Data Sync to kind of lower the total cost of ownership. It's really simple, especially with a Veeam-powered solution where you just add as a service provider. And then you can see here, so it's kind of a 1, 2, 3 step. You just add as a service provider, create your backup copy jobs to copy the data sets off into a cloud provider, and then 3, send that data to Offsite Data Sync. And so there's a lot around that, that service that then it makes sense to partner with. And so really with the backup as a service with Offsite Data Sync, you're looking at a flexible service. So it's dynamically allocated cloud storage, which is based on real-time data performance needs. So whether you don't know how much storage you're going to need, or if the data sets are kind of growing and really needing to meet those needs, then you'd be looking at being able to increase just in kind of 1 terabyte increments as needed. And then we also offer managed solutions. So really backup as a service is great for customers that maybe don't have a large IT staff or maybe even have no IT staff. So really partnering with us to really provide that managed service to be able to monitor and remediate your backup jobs and kind of look at everything from day to day, and then even be able to make sure that your data is protected and that your business is safe, and kind of offload that service. That's where kind of those as a services are really great, because you're looking to really optimize your time, your staff, your resources, your finances, all those things. So it's a great consideration. And again, we're able to integrate a lot of ways at a scalable rate that maybe might not be able to be done on-prem. So whether that's offloading some workloads to public cloud type or S3 compatible type storage just for a cheaper cost, but then also the security, the ability to tailor and do some best fit solutions, those really do all come into play. So then disaster recovery as a service, like I alluded to, this is usually a bigger project and undertaking by an organization, somewhat usually more of a more expensive solution because of the low RTO target. So you're trying to have your environment recovered in maybe a matter of minutes, and you maybe even in a highly regulated industry. And really, it does come down to, you do need to be up and running in a much quicker time frame, whereas opposed to backups as a service comes more in line with maybe you're fine with being down for 12 to 24 hours as you kind of restore all those workloads. Whereas with disaster recovery, you're using virtual machine replication and then filling those things over into a cloud-based environment such as Offsite Data Sync. And then you just have your connectivity options and considerations, and then even work with a DR partner like us to develop your disaster recovery plan and kind of that playbook and runbook of what's going to happen, and really know what the steps are going to be and who's responsible for what things in the event of a disaster. So with disaster recovery as a service, especially leveraging Veeam Cloud Connect replication. So you get one-click failover. So you can create your failover plan to dictate the boot order and the boot delay of your machine. So you just initiate that from anywhere. So there's even a cloud-based portal so that if you do need to fail over those workloads, but you don't have access to your Veeam console, then you can even do that just anywhere that you have internet access. Or since those failover plans are actually stored with a service provider, you can even call us and we can initiate that failover plan on your behalf after you kind of go through some checks and security protocols. And again, that can be a managed service as well. So similar to backup, if you're looking to offload those workloads and tasks, then we can do that for you. And again, this is a near instant type failover. You're talking seconds or even minutes of having that low RPO, low RTO, and getting your workloads and everything failed over and up and running quickly. And again, it is just as simple as with the backup to where you add as a service provider, you create your replication jobs within Veeam, create your failover plans, and then really the biggest piece is going to come down to testing. So that's, again, where I was alluding to that it's a bigger project than undertaking, because usually testing, having good connectivity, and determining what all it is that comes into play with with your test to validate those and meet those needs is where that's a bigger consideration and conversation. So it's usually for something on down the line. We have lots of customers that maybe start with backup as a service and maybe transition some of their other workloads or maybe even all their workloads to replication. So infrastructure as a service. So this is where maybe it makes sense to offload some of those maintenance costs and things where maybe even just running into growth limitations or other concerns of being tied to your on-premises workloads and hardware. And so hosting those with someone like Offsite Data Sync, or even using Veeam to protect those workloads if they've been moved to a public cloud resource. Those are all considerations where you do still want to take into consideration data protection, business continuity, disaster recovery, all those things and considerations. And so we would leverage Veeam-powered solutions for those infrastructure as a service workloads, or even if it's a SaaS application like Office 365, so backing up Exchange Online or SharePoint or OneDrive with Veeam's Backup Office 365 product. We also offer that as well through a portal-based kind of self-service portal where you can set up your own backup jobs to your own resource. No need to engage us, but it absolutely can be fully managed. So again, these types of solutions, when we're talking infrastructure as a service or maybe even other SaaS workloads, it really is for rapid growth or trying to lower that cost, and then also have business continuity based around getting those workloads off of and away from your kind of four walls of business so that you can be more dynamic and more secure. And one thing as well is, so our infrastructure as a service offering is hosted out of the Switch SuperNet facility, as well as a number of other products and services that we offer. So that's going to meet a lot of compliance and regulation levels and initiatives. So when it comes to needing to do that for your organization, maybe you can't do that internally with your either own facilities or colo facilities. So that's where partnering with us, and we're then also leveraging that Tier 4 Gold carrier neutral facility like Switch is going to really be a great play and consideration for those as a service offerings. And again, these are Veeam-powered solutions such as backup and disaster recovery, so replication or Office 365 protection, brought to you by ODS, but powered by Veeam software. So if you're a Veeam user or you're interested in trialing Veeam, you can also trial with Offsite Data Sync, and we can kind of work together. So think of us as an extension of Veeam where you can work with us and we can troubleshoot and resolve those issues or anything you might have. Or if even you're looking to offload some of that management. So we have a number of VMCE, so Veeam certified engineers on staff, as well as 2 Veeam Vanguards, so 2 of the highest level type of consideration that Veeam bestows upon any of their VMCEs. So we actually do have 2 of those in staff, which I believe we're the only Veeam cloud service provider that has 2 of those Veeam Vanguards on staff. So you're dealing with Veeam experts as well as DR experts. So we deal with a number of disasters, whether they're minor and just spinning up maybe a machine or 2 from a backup file, or an entire site and failing over a number of replicas and connecting other offices and sites to this DR environment. We deal with that on a regular, consistent basis, whereas as a standalone organization, perhaps you only run into that type of scenario, maybe hopefully never, but maybe, once a year probably at most, especially if you're maybe in like more of a hurricane-prone area or something like that. So we deal with that often, and that's where it's great to partner with a DR and business continuity expert like Offsite Data Sync. And really, that's kind of all I have. So I appreciate the time, and definitely can take any questions or any other considerations.
Yeah, great presentation, Travis. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. While we do that, I'm just going to bring up this poll question that says, what additional information would you like about the Offsite Data Sync Veeam solution? And so let's see. First question, actually comment that came in, Tom said Veeam rocks. So that's good to hear. Another question that came in here, they're asking about, if they have Veeam today, maybe they're, using a secondary, data center or something like that at their company. But if they want to consider backup to the cloud to get data off-site, do they need additional licensing to do that, or how does that work with Offsite Data Sync?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's the nice thing about that configuration in Veeam is there is no additional cost as far as licensing. So, and then with us, we only charge at a per terabyte rate. So it just then comes down to kind of repository sizing. So there's no additional cost as far as the number of VMs you might be either backing up or replicating to us. There's no ingress or egress charges. And it really is as simple as adding as a service provider in your Veeam console and then consuming those tenant resources that have been assigned to you. And again, we offer a services portal where you can fully manage your solution, increase your quota as you see fit, see service cases and updates, or even monitor usage trends and consumption over time.
Okay, nice. And then what about how much control do you have over each backup method they're asking?
I probably need some more clarity on that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so when selecting which virtual machines to get offsite, how hard is that to do, I guess, I think is the question.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yes, that can be really as straightforward and easy as you like. So what's nice about the Veeam-powered solution for especially backup copy, so replication is similar to backup in that you can set up your replication job and you can define whatever machines you want to include into that, and if you want to exclude some disks out of that, you can totally do that. The nice thing about backup, I'll start with virtual machines and then kind of get into like physical workloads or cloud-based workloads where you've installed maybe the Veeam agent for Windows. So with backup copy, you can tie that directly to a backup job so that if you add or remove machines from a backup, then it's automatically going to be added or removed from the backup copy job. And then you can do it that way, or you can just manually select in your environment or in your backups some individual machines. So maybe you don't want to do everything. So maybe you want, whether it's for archiving purposes, which we see, or it's for both archiving and disaster recovery type considerations, then you can really just choose those workloads at a more granular level with the virtual machines, and then just send those kind of offsite as well. So it doesn't have to be everything that maybe is in your environment or even backed by Veeam, so you can kind of pick and choose there. And then the nice thing about the agents, specifically the latest Veeam version 3 for Windows agent, is if you're doing the non-free license, so there's some limitations if you're just using kind of the free license that Veeam supplies for those agents to back up. If you're using the workstation license or the server license, you can set up some multiple jobs. So you can back up either those physical workloads locally, either to like a Veeam environment. If you do have a Veeam console and repository in place, you can point those workloads to back up there. And then you can also set up a second job to go directly to a Cloud Connect service provider such as Offsite Data Sync. So you get a lot of flexibility and power there, whether or not maybe you even have an entire Veeam environment, we'll call it, with you're talking the console, repository, proxies. So if those even aren't in play in your environment, you can still leverage the Veeam agent for Windows for some virtual workloads that either Veeam doesn't support from a hypervisor perspective, such as Citrix Zen Server. You could at least install the agent for Windows on those workloads, and then back them up a couple different ways, either directly to a Connect resource such as Offsite Data Sync, or set up a couple different jobs to where you're then meeting that 3-2-1 best practice consideration.
Got it. Okay. There's another question here about what's the pricing or licensing model for Offsite Data Sync? Is it based on how much data you protect?
Yeah, great question. So we do offer a couple different suites of service, so it really can depend, and that's where we usually want to kind of walk through with customers on some, fit assessments, we call it, where we're kind of looking at those solutions and walking through, what is it that really you're looking for? Is it just to store data offsite sort of a thing? And so, that might be on the lower end of our service, so you're talking maybe somewhere in the realm of $40 to $50 per terabyte per month. Or it may be a more white glove, all-inclusive type consideration. And then you're talking more in the, $100 to $150 per terabyte per month, and that comes with, DR testing, and a lot of high-level, what we kind of call platinum feature sets. So it really depends on some of those considerations. And then as well, so I kind of briefly touched on archiving a little bit after the presentation. But the nice thing about archiving considerations is if you are keeping a lot of, grandfather, father, son archival points, weeklies, monthlies, quarterlies, or yearlies, then we have the ability on our side with Offsite Data Sync to offload those to, like I've mentioned, the kind of public cloud, either Azure Blob or AWS S3 or even S3 compatible storage. So you're leveraging those object storage-based workloads for $15 per terabyte per month. So that can really get you some cost savings when you're looking to offload some of those data sets that can really add up over time. If you're talking that your full backup is 10 terabytes and you're wanting to keep, 12 of those throughout the year and then another, let's say 7 for like HIPAA compliance type concerns where, you're able to go back 7 years in time, you're looking at almost 20 points at 10 terabytes each, so 200 terabytes quickly adds up. So that's where being able to offload that just for archival purposes to a slower performing object storage can really, get you some considerations where the solution isn't ballooning in cost and just becoming something that's not manageable.
Got it. Okay, good. Another question here that came in, they said, great presentation. And this may be one that's a little complex, so we might need to take offline, but does the solution have its independent SOC 2 certification and any consideration for a multi-geo global organization on GDPR or sovereignty regulations and laws? Quite a question.
That is interesting. So I can probably at least address some of that. So definitely, especially as I mentioned, partnering with the switch facilities and then even our kind of other facilities that we leverage. So we do have a global presence. Depending on GDPR, we do have a facility in Amsterdam. So if we're talking more of a Canadian or German workloads, and then there's some data sovereignty concerns there. Just depending on what those regulations are, we'd be stuck in those type of considerations if, they're not able to leave those countries. And then we do also have a facility in Singapore. And really also, Offsite Data Sync was actually just a couple of months back acquired by J2 Global. So that's a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company. And so we're actually starting to leverage some of their data center presence and workloads like Australia. So our global reach is only expanding and our resource considerations and, capital expenditures are only growing. And so that really adds to our flexibility, our dynamic ability overall. But then just to consider that SOC 2, so that does line up with, that's why we specifically for most of our services do partner with the switch facilities where you are looking at that tier 4 consideration. So HIPAA, PCI, SOC 2, there's a number of considerations for compliance where we meet those regulations.
Excellent. And then another follow-up question, they're asking about compliance, like reporting. What sort of reporting would be available?
That's a good question. That's usually more on the operations side of the house, so I tend to stay out of that. I don't like to get my hands dirty in the legal side of things. But I do know that we do provide a lot of those type of reporting and requests. Typically, if it's something that does fall in line with pulling reporting involving the switch facility, it usually does require at least signing an NDA because just by nature of switch, if anyone on the cast here is familiar with Switch, they tend to be very close-fisted about a lot of the secrets and things. And so usually by nature of that, we have to kind of jump through a couple, signatures and considerations. But I don't know of any time we've not been able to supply any and all documentation that gets people at least full transparency to what we offer and do and meet. So I think there are maybe a couple type of regulations that we don't meet at more of like a federal level. I don't want to misspeak, so I'm not going to say which ones may or may not, because I think there are some we do. So I think we are ITAR compliant, but I'm not sure about like FedRAMP. So things like that, we usually don't hold back on just so that, customers can know what they're getting and where we are or aren't meeting those compliances.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would encourage this person to, give it a try and talk some more to a sales rep and find out more information and get all the details on compliance. So let's see, another question here. Why should I consider the Offsite Data Sync offering instead of doing cloud backup myself?
That's a good question. So it really can come down to a couple things. It really can come down to, if you want to look at it from the business continuity or insurance perspective, so working with experts in that realm. So depending on, what type of capacity you have just internally to, leverage those workloads and set up those considerations. Since I'm more of an engineer, I can put my engineering hat on here and say, there's definitely a lot that can be consumed and self-facilitated out there, with setting up, like a storage gateway and writing some workloads just directly, but then that's all internal. And I've been a part of organizations where someone maybe set those things up and then transitioned, and then someone else comes along and has no idea how that technology works. So there are just some considerations there, from management to expertise to just even resource availability. A lot of companies have resource constraints, time constraints, competing projects. And so being able to just work with someone, being able to pick up a phone or send an email and say, hey, can you, either fully manage this or be able to get those questions answered in a timely fashion, that's pretty invaluable at times. And really the other piece that I'll speak to technology perspective is how that data is accessible via your network from something like a threat or ransomware consideration. So some of your internal setups and workloads still might be exposed. So maybe not just depending on how you have, some certain things set up and in place. But what's nice about the Veeam Cloud Connect portion is that data repository isn't natively visible on your network the way something like a mapped storage volume through either AWS or Azure might be. So just some considerations there as well, that even though you might be offloading some of those workloads, they still in some ways might behave as on-prem considerations.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, Travis, you did a great job handling some tough questions there. Really great presentation. Thank you so much for being on the event today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. My pleasure. And everybody have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Excellent. And for more information on Offsite Data Sync, check out the Offsite Data Sync data sheet that's right there in the handouts panel of your audience console. All right, now it's time for another gift card giveaway. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Josh Hale from Oregon. Congratulations, Josh Hale from Oregon. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter on the Cloud MegaCast. That is Navtane, who is a product manager at Druva. Navtane, are you with us?
Yes, hi there.
Thanks for being on the event. Take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Navtane, and I'm a product manager here at Druva. And today I'm going to talk to you about why Druva is the right data protection solution for you. All right, so starting again, thanks for tuning in and thank you for your patience while we sorted through some of these technical issues. I'm a product manager here at Druva, and I'm going to talk to you about why Druva is the right protection tool for you in this era of cloud data protection. So in the next slide, what we see is that as technology evolves, the way we consume technology has also evolved, going from a hardware model to consumption in the cloud, going from bare metal installations all the way to containers, functions, and services. The nature of workloads have changed. And as applications and workload change, in the next slide you will see that the threats and regulations they face are evolving as well, increasing the amount of money that companies spend on data protection to protect against growing exposure to their data. Some of these threats include ransomware attacks, which can lead to millions in unexpected recovery costs, or updating disaster recovery processes and infrastructure, which can be complex, which can be expensive, and hard to recover from, especially if you have multiple sites and don't know where you've set up the DRaaS process for that site. You also have to deal with growing compliance and governance requirements such as GDPR or California privacy laws or other regional requirements in your area. And you have to do all of this while also, in the next slide, you have to do all of this while also parallelly dealing with your organization's cloud mandate, which you may have from the leadership, which is asking you to take all your new workloads to cloud, your new applications to cloud, do data protection in the cloud, trying to find the right DR solution which fits this mandate especially if you have remote sites and data centers, and then finding the right solution which evolves with the new challenges, is able to cope with the cyber resiliency, and trying to do more with your data than just storing it in one place, right? Your organization now wants you to do AI and machine learning and analytics with your data. So what do organizations do to deal with all of these challenges? To meet these challenges, organizations are looking for data protection solutions which allow them to pay only for what they've consumed in the cloud, instead of buying an extra bunch of hardware and then pre-planning how much they're going to use it. They're looking to eliminate complexity with simple, easy, and fast solutions, and move beyond hardware management into a scalable self-service model. Also, providing you visibility into your local regulations and providing you a global reach with one central management tool, which is where, in the next slide, you will see the SaaS transformation picture comes into being, right? Not just data protection. Organizations are moving to SaaS for pretty much everything that they do. For applications, instead of using Oracle and SAP, people have started to use Salesforce to store data, Box, Zendesk for their ticketing needs and all that. For development tools, instead of in-house development tools, people are using GitHub and Twilio. For databases, you're seeing people move away from SQL and Oracle databases, from your DB2 databases, to Amazon services like DynamoDB and Aurora or MongoDB. So then, in this era of moving everything to a SaaS platform, why should we have to build our own custom data protection solution? Doesn't make sense. Why not use a SaaS solution like Druva, which does all of these hard work for you and takes care of that complexity and just gives you data protection solution on demand as you need it. So what do we mean when we say use Druva for your SaaS solution, right? You have data in your endpoints, you have data in your data center, you have it in cloud workloads. Protect all of that with one Druva cloud platform, which gives you backup and restore capabilities, which gives you disaster recovery capabilities, which enables you to deal with compliance and e-discovery, also gives you analytics and forensics tools for your data. You can use one platform to protect your data wherever it lies, and also enjoy these benefits from your data. So let's look at some additional benefits that you get by switching to a SaaS provider like Druva, right? You can scale in and out on demand, all the while paying only for what you use. We don't just let you scale out as your data grows. If your data shrinks or if you delete some data, we also scale in and give you that cost benefit. You can eliminate the need to maintain or upgrade your environment. We do it for you. Our releases are every couple of weeks, and it's a cloud push into our platform, and you automatically get new features as and when we release them. No more forklift upgrades and stuff like that. Enjoy uniquely cloud-native benefits like global deduplication, forever incremental backups, getting a single pane of glass solution for all your sites, all your workloads, and then seamlessly enabling services such as disaster recovery, data analytics, ransomware protection on demand. Next, yep. So let's look at how much we have simplified the architecture for the backup solution, right? You have workloads that you need to protect to the cloud. They may be data center workloads or workloads in remote sites or wherever. You simply just point them to our cloud platform, and we protect it for you and charge you a monthly consumption fee for it based on how much data you've stored in the cloud. No more capacity planning and all that stuff, right? Now you have that data sitting in the cloud and you want to restore it. You can restore it back to your data center or to any other location or to a VMware cloud on AWS environment. You can also use your Amazon account to have a disaster recovery site set up with a backup copy of your data, which is ready to be booted at the time of disaster. All of this with no tape, no hardware, no backup software, dedupe disks, off-siting capabilities, or multiple management touch points. Right. Now, you may say, hey, I've put all my data in the cloud. I need it right now. What should I do? So we also give you an option of having a cloud cache software on-prem that we give you free of cost, which will store up to 30 days of your data on-prem to give you LAN-like restore speeds or have some copy of your data online for compliance needs. So what does this look like under the hood? As you can see, we are natively built in the cloud, right? We use multiple AWS services such as S3 for storing data, Glacier for tiering it, DynamoDB for the metadata, RDS for orchestration, and multiple other services that you can just see over here, right? Because we are so tightly integrated into the AWS system and we are built natively from the ground up over here, it's very easy for us to add in more services as and when AWS releases it and give them to you faster. Case in point, Glacier Deep Archive. We just announced our integration with that this month, and we'll start tiering data to Glacier Deep Archive and giving you the cost benefits around it. Right. The other another service example that we can give you is a Snowball Edge device that we've integrated with. You can order it through your Druva console, and we will ship it to you free of cost to put in a copy of your first backup and then send it to us, and we will upload it in the cloud, just making your onboarding process easier. Now, to get a DR copy, you can in your own AWS account run a small proxy which will store the latest backup as a EBS volume snapshot, ready to just be booted to the cloud, so that when a DR scenario happens or when you have to test it, by one click you can spin up your workloads in about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, regardless of the size of that VM. Right. So now let's look at some of our customers and how we have helped them benefit from Druva. Egan, a construction company with multiple construction sites, had a large volume of files that they needed to back up, and their existing backup solution required an on-premises storage solution. It's difficult to maintain an on-premises storage solution when you have moving construction sites and you have to close the construction site and open another one, right? And so they were 100% virtualized and they were ready to move to the cloud. So with Druva, they were able to save 30 hours a month in storage management costs, spinning up new sites, closing down other sites as well, and have a direct-to-cloud backup solution in place with an on-premises, without an on-premises presence, and have extensive management and governance features just ready to activate, which we've been able to do for them as they've evolved in our ecosystem. Let's look at another company. Andritz, a global manufacturing organization, transformed its data protection with Druva by moving from multiple plants having multiple different solutions. They had close to 5 or 10 backup solutions to one solution for everything. They had concerns about data privacy laws in multiple regions, especially because they had around 200 construction plants and offices combined. They had to have time-consuming daily processes set up just to ensure that backups were taking place, and issues with recoverability and consistency with rising storage costs, clarity around where your data is stored, and all that. With Druva, they were able to gain visibility into the data in 200 offices around the world, get better access to backup data with improved disaster recovery capabilities, which we were able to set up for them, and they removed the dependency on distributed storage to move completely to a SaaS model. Why should you do the same, right? How can we help you through all these benefits? Well, with Druva, you can lower your data protection costs by up to 50% with no capacity management overheads, no maintenance overheads. You can deploy in up to 15 minutes and enjoy feature updates every couple of weeks with the highest security certifications. No contracts for multiple years or complex do-it-yourself customizations. So contact us for a demo, a free trial, or to find out how we can reduce your total cost of ownership for your data protection solution, and we'll be happy to help you. With that, I'm going to pause here and take some questions.
Yes, great presentation. Thank you. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. While we do that, I'm just going to bring up this whole question for the audience. And it says, what additional info would you like about the Druva solution? So we'll just leave that up. Let's see, first question that came in, we might want to clarify for them, is Druva a hardware solution or software solution or both?
It's a software solution, but it's both, because you do not have to own or pay for any hardware. You're paying one bill with Druva, which is your post deduplication storage costs on a monthly basis. You're not paying AWS any extra money for the storage that you use over there. It's all handled by us.
Got it. So I don't have to install any hardware like on premises to use Druva.
You don't have to install any hardware on premises. The Cloud Cache piece that I mentioned is a completely optional piece that if you want to have a on-premises solution or on-premises component, you are more than welcome to do so, but it's not needed at all.
Got it. Okay. There's another question here about once the data, let's say it's backed up into AWS, who's paying the bill to store that data? Do I pay AWS to hold that or Druva?
Yes, exactly. You only pay us for the data that you store. If we have a really good partnership with AWS. We take care of all that extra storage costs and any storage overheads. You are paying your one data protection bill, which is all inclusive, all of storage.
Okay, nice. And then another question here, they're asking about security. Once it's in the cloud, is it encrypted? Does Druva have any access to the data?
Yes, great question. We do not have access to your data. It's all encrypted with envelope encryption. You have the key. We don't have access to that. Your password and your key gives you that access. We just store your data in an encrypted format. More than that, it's also deduplicated and in multiple different services. So there is a separation of duties with where your metadata sits in DynamoDB and where your data sits as well.
Okay, very nice. And then another question here, they're asking about the requirements to use Druva, on premises. So, for example, they're mentioning, is there an operating system requirement? Will it work with VMware vSphere?
It will work with VMware vSphere. It will, and if you are looking for that Cloud Cache requirements, we give you a reference architecture that you can use or deploy it as a VM.
Okay, nice. What about, there's another question here about protecting desktops. Is that possible with Druva?
Yes, you can protect desktops or as we call it, endpoint data with our cloud solution as well.
All right, nice. Let's see, another question. What about disaster recovery? Let's see, there's a question here. If we do have a disaster, we've protected our virtual machines with Druva. How quickly can we get those virtual machines back up and running?
That's a great question. So with disaster recovery, if you have disaster recovery set up, what we do is we take your latest backup and keep it in a different VPC in which you own, because we don't want access to your data, right? As an EBS snapshot, ready to boot within 30 to 40 minutes at max, and then we give you the capability to have an orchestrated advanced runbook where you can specify the boot order of all your VMs and when each VM is, should be booted or run scripts inside the VM as well. What you get access to is both a test failover capability and a production failover capability. We do not use AWS import, so it doesn't take us hours to to start up a VM in cloud. We use our own proprietary tech, which has really reduced the cost and made it independent of the VM size.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Another question just came in when it comes to backing up the endpoints. They're asking if agents are required. Would they install agents to back up endpoints?
Yes, for the endpoints, you will have agents that you will install in your computer, in your desktops and endpoints. You can push it through one click through your IT, and you don't have to go in and install it in each and every machine. And our backups for our server, just let me take that opportunity as well. Our backups for our server data are agentless. We use a proxy in for example, in a VMware, right? We use a proxy, a small proxy which discovers all your VMs and reports it to us so that we can just configure your backup from our platform.
Very nice. So another question they're wanting to clarify is, say I backed up a VMware virtual machine with Druva that's stored in AWS, and then I have a disaster. I spin that up in AWS. I guess they're asking if it's able to convert that virtual machine that was a VMware format. It could now run in AWS with Druva. Is that true?
Yes. So I think let me extend the question. It goes both ways as well. For disaster recovery, you take a VMware backup. It stays with Druva. When DR happens, you convert it into a EC2 instance, run it in the EC2 instance, and then when you're done with your disaster recovery workload, or when you have an ESX host ready to be reused, you can fail back that EC2 instance and convert it to your VMware, and we allow that transition as well.
Okay, nice. So probably last question we have time for, if people wanted to try out Druva, what do you recommend? How did they get started?
Great. You can do a free trial with us. You can contact our sales team at Druva, and then we can get you started with a demo, with a trial, and help you with any queries that you have.
Okay, nice. And in fact, a question just came in. Chris is asking, what's the time frame to get Druva up and running? So if they did that free trial, how long does that typically take?
Once you have everything, you contact us, and we assess your requirements and everything. To actually get the software up and running to backup, you need 15 to 30 minutes at max. We spin up instances in cloud, give you access to that instance, which will be your instance, and then you can configure your backup almost. It's a very intuitive UI to do that as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for questions, but thank you so much for being on the event today, Navtani.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the assistance with the slide deck.
Absolutely. Yeah, no worries. And thank you to Druva for supporting today's event. For more information, visit druva.com. Also, check out the handout that's available for download there in the audience console, which is entitled The Definitive Guide to Enterprise Data Backup and Recovery Architectures. A really well-done document, so make sure that you check that one out. All right, now it's time for another prize giveaway. We have an Amazon $500 gift card, and that is going out to Vlad Zesker from Illinois. Congratulations, Vlad Zesker from Illinois. Stay tuned, because after the next presentation, we'll be doing another gift card and our first of the grand prize giveaways. I know you don't want to miss that. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dan, who is a Senior Principal Technology Evangelist at Red Hat. Take it away, Dan.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here today to speak with everyone. As was mentioned, my name is Dan Jungst, and I'm a Senior Principal Technology Evangelist with Red Hat. And what I want to talk about today is how Red Hat can help you tame this crazy thing called hybrid cloud that everybody's talking about. So that's going to be the topic of our session here. So let's just jump into it. First of all, let's talk about a couple of forcing functions that we're all experiencing in the IT world today. One is from the customer side. The customers are expecting more and more and faster every day, right? On-demand service and incredibly delightful interactions, access from anywhere, and really a personalized experience on any device. So that's one aspect that's impacting our lives and our ability to execute and driving our need to deliver faster. And then there's also new technologies and new capabilities that are always coming into play that are really kind of changing the game and allowing us to deliver some of those innovations that the customers want, right? Really incredible new technologies like AI and machine learning that are being applied more and more often to solving really hard problems and delivering really valuable information to our end users and to our customers. Analytics, cloud native applications is a whole new way to build applications that allows you to deliver applications and services even faster. And then, of course, Internet of Things is gathering data from devices all over the world, and we're feeding that data into the AI and machine learning technologies to really discover some amazing pieces of knowledge and information that we wouldn't have had before. So with these things, when you look at it, in order to really take advantage of these new capabilities and technologies, there's this capability called hybrid and/or multi-cloud that allows you to do that more easily, right? With hybrid and multi-cloud allows you to match the different types of workload that you want to run on different clouds. So you may want to run your cloud native applications on one cloud and your AI and machine learning on another cloud. And hybrid and multi-cloud really let you do that. So what are hybrid cloud and multi-cloud? Well, multi-cloud is really about using multiple different cloud providers and running possibly different workloads on them and solving different problems and running different tasks. That could even include software as a service clouds in addition to infrastructure as a service clouds. Hybrid cloud is really using a combination of a public and a private cloud or multiples of those with a degree of kind of integration and portability of the workload across them, right? So you're essentially making one big cloud out of private cloud components and public cloud components together. And so it's a little bit different from multi-cloud in that it's actually one kind of aggregated cloud. But they both have a lot of potential and are both really being used in the industry. In fact, Gartner has said that by 2020, 75% of organizations will have deployed a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud model. RightScale ran a report this year that said that 84% of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy. They really are intending to go do this thing called multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. So these are really factors that are in our reality and things that our IT organizations are looking at. But the challenge is when IT organizations begin to want to move forward with a cloud strategy, a hybrid cloud strategy or multi-cloud, they're overwhelmed by all the options that are out there, all the vendors that can offer them technologies, all the cloud providers, all the container platform providers. There's just tons of different choices. And how do they make the right choice to pick the right cloud that they want to run on for their workloads, right? How can they take advantage of that? When they begin to look at the different clouds and they begin having teams leveraging and using the different clouds, they discover that they're all very different, right? Each one has a completely different interface for both operations and for development. So the operations teams have to use kind of different control planes. Developers have different development models. And portability of applications becomes a challenge because you may be building an application in one cloud and using their services, and those services may not actually exist in another cloud. And then one big challenge with cloud proliferation is that it can cause organizational chaos. You may have different teams running in different clouds, even sort of shadow IT teams that are taking advantage of clouds, and it just really becomes problematic. If you think about it, going back to the future, it's sort of going back to the no single pane of glass for IT management, right? So that was a challenge we had 20 years ago, and now it's resurfacing as a challenge. So a lot of people will say, well, I heard Kubernetes is the solution, right? I'm just going to use Kubernetes. It's a container orchestration platform, and it runs everywhere, right? So I'll just do that. Well, that's an interesting idea, but we need to step back and take a look at what are containers and what is Kubernetes, and really to understand what that means. Containers, first of all, start with Linux. Linux is foundational to containers. Containers run on a Linux container host. They were invented in Linux. They use Linux subsystems in order to define and create the container. they depend on Linux features. In fact, every container runs Linux software inside of it, right? A piece of software called the user space is found inside of every container. And so you have a container which is running some Linux inside it, and it runs on top of a Linux container host. So those two factors become very important. Applications that run in containers are, in fact, Linux applications, right? Because they are running in Linux. And then Kubernetes, which is this orchestration platform, which has become immensely popular for managing hundreds and thousands of containers, was invented in the Linux world, and it uses Linux to manage the resources, Linux APIs and Linux constructs. So the thing to think about is that if you want expertise in containers and you want to run containers, then you really need expertise in Linux. Red Hat Enterprise Linux is the leading Linux for the enterprise. It runs on all footprints from bare metal to virtualization to private cloud to public cloud. In fact, we'll talk about the Red Hat Certified Cloud and Service Provider program, which certifies that RHEL runs on all the cloud. So it gives you that portability, that flexibility. We talked about the Linux user space running inside a container. This is a really important and critical aspect to keep in mind. Since you have Linux inside the container and you're running it on a container host, you want that Linux to be the same, right? You want that user space library that's running inside the container to be matched up with the kernel that it's running on top of. If you have different Linux flavors, if you have one Linux flavor running inside the container and then you're running it on a different Linux kernel, you can have problems, right? Those binaries will possibly not be compatible. So this gets to the question of, kind of portability and everything. Containers do enhance portability, but you want to be very careful, because if you try to run a container with built on one Linux on top of a container host running a different Linux, then things can break, and you never know when it's going to break. It's kind of like fire insurance for your house, right? You've never seen your friend's house burn down, but they have insurance for it, right? And because you don't want to take that risk. So just something that a lot of people don't think about, but it's really important to know that the Linux foundation that you're running your containers on is a very critical, important decision. And it goes up and down the stack, right? Kubernetes is tightly integrated with the operating system. The whole stack must work very closely together. And so you want a Linux foundation which is reliable and secure and supportable, and is the best platform for running your containers. This gets to the next point, which is when you think about picking a Kubernetes-based container platform, there's a lot of different choices that you have out there. A lot of vendors that can offer you Kubernetes. All the cloud providers offer a Kubernetes service. There's smaller startups like Docker and Rancher that have Kubernetes flavored software offerings. And bigger companies like VMware, which is now acquiring Pivotal and has acquired Heptio, is coming hard to market with a Kubernetes solution. And so if you do say, I'm just going to run Kubernetes and then I won't have to worry about the cloud, then that's interesting. But the thing you need to ask yourself is, from all those vendors that are out there selling Kubernetes, do they offer you the following for the Linux that they're going to be providing to run your containers, right? Does their Linux have the security and the performance and the reliability that RHEL does? Does it have long-term support and ecosystem and certifications and a full lifecycle roadmap? So it's just a very important question, because ultimately your container platform vendor is going to become your Linux vendor, right? So you need to keep that in mind when you're looking at making a choice for your container platforms. So let's talk about the developers now for a little bit. Where do the developers start if they want to build containerized applications? What we talk about is cloud native applications that are made up of microservices running inside of containers, all talking to each other. This chart is from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation kind of trail map, they call it. It's a map of all the technologies and companies and vendors that are out there in this cloud native space. And it's a bit overwhelming as well, right? So the developers have lots of choices to make. How do they know what are the right choices? How do they know which one of these are really enterprise grade solutions that they want to build on? So let's think about what could help here. What we really need from both an operational standpoint and a development standpoint is consistency, right? We need a consistent enterprise application container platform that we can build on top of and run on any cloud. And we need a consistent developer experience for coding, building, and deploying applications. and then a consistent operational interface with automated operations, things that will make it easier for the operations teams to do that. DevOps tooling that's compatible across all the clouds, is certainly something that would help. And then in terms of the ultimate consistency, to have a single secure Linux operating system that runs on all the clouds, provide that foundation of consistency for you is something that will be super important, right? So Red Hat delivers that. Red Hat delivers cloud consistency. We have a stack of technologies. Our Kubernetes, enterprise Kubernetes-based container platform is called Red Hat OpenShift, and it runs on any of the clouds because it runs on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and its RHEL is certified on all the cloud providers. So by running and building your applications on Red Hat OpenShift, you get consistency. You get a consistent developer interface. OpenShift has a very powerful browser-based IDE for developers to work in, all the runtimes and languages that you want to choose from and databases to build your applications. It has a consistent operational interface no matter where you run it because it's the OpenShift console and it's built with OpenShift operators, which make installation and management very easy. And it has a consistent application architecture that you can deploy on different clouds as long as you're deploying on OpenShift. Because of that, you can do that because it's a consistent application infrastructure that you're going to be running your applications on. So what do we mean by consistency? Well, if you think about it, as we said before, you could run different Kubernetes services. You could run a Kubernetes service in the cloud. You could run a open source Kubernetes in your data center. But if you do that, you're going to get a different experience for developers. You're going to get different operational models. You're going to get different installation processes. And it's going to be, you don't know what flavor of Linux it's going to be running on. And who's going to support it, right? If you're doing open source, you're going to be supporting it yourself. However, if you choose Red Hat OpenShift, then you can deploy it on premise. With the Red Hat OpenShift container platform, you can deploy it in the cloud. There are also managed services out there, Red Hat OpenShift dedicated. And that choosing any of those will allow you to have that same developer experience, the same kind of operational experience. The installation is built in and easy. It runs on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is a trusted and secure operating system. So it's got a lot of extra tooling, logging and monitoring, and developer tooling, and it's got full support from Red Hat. So that really gives you this kind of consistent Kubernetes-based container platform that you can run on any cloud. It also gives you kind of the flexibility and portability. If you can deploy Red Hat OpenShift on any of the cloud providers, or even on a private cloud with Red Hat OpenStack, and that allows you to build your applications and deploy them into any cloud. So you get portability and deployment flexibility. A couple of the key components to make up the Red Hat OpenShift platform is the operating system underneath. We talked about this, right? The Linux that you're going to be running on is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It is proven and secure. In fact, one of the interesting things about Red Hat Enterprise Linux in the container world is there was a container vulnerability that happened in February of this year that impacted all the container runtimes out there for all the Kubernetes installations. However, because Red Hat Enterprise Linux has something called SE Linux, Security Enhanced Linux, as a feature, and it was turned on. It's turned on by default in OpenShift, and so no OpenShift customers were impacted by this vulnerability. So that's just an example of the importance of the operating system underneath and the robustness of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The other key aspect is Red Hat OpenShift, right? It is our enterprise Kubernetes application platform. It includes Red Hat Enterprise Linux Core OS, which is a stripped down container version of RHEL. It is the same RHEL kernel, but it's minimized just to run containers. But it also includes Kubernetes. It also includes a lot of tooling and both for operations and for developers to make life easier. So Red Hat OpenShift includes a full developer experience and interface in the form of a browser-based IDE, includes all the runtimes, includes a service mesh capability for integrating your microservices together. So it's just a very powerful capability for running your applications. We'd like to talk about, why do we think Red Hat OpenShift is the best choice for enterprise Kubernetes? Well, things to ask yourself and to ask your vendors are, how much are they contributing to Kubernetes? Red Hat is the second leading contributor behind Google, who invented Kubernetes. And we are driving a lot of capabilities in the upstream open source project. Red Hat actually contributed things like role-based access control to Kubernetes. When it was first created, it didn't have role-based access control, and Red Hat, being an enterprise software company, wrote it and contributed and put it into Kubernetes. The next thing to ask is about our real enterprise customers using this Kubernetes platform. Red Hat has over 1,300 enterprise customers, a number of key references that are running on Red Hat OpenShift and have been for years. And then where does it run? As I mentioned before, Red Hat has a strong partnership with the cloud providers and has certified OpenShift and RHEL on all the major cloud providers. And of course, it runs on bare metal and on virtual machines in your data center as well. And it's a comprehensive container platform with tooling for developers as well as for operations. And with Red Hat OpenShift is that we've added that capability to it. But Red Hat is actually more than just OpenShift and RHEL, right? Red Hat has a full stack of technologies that really help you manage the hybrid cloud scenario, running across different clouds and integrating them together. Red Hat OpenShift, and then with Red Hat OpenShift, you can run the Red Hat middleware stack of technologies with application runtimes and Java application servers and et cetera. We also have Red Hat OpenShift Container Storage, which gives you a storage capability to run in your OpenShift environment to allow your applications have access to that storage. And that again runs on top of OpenShift, so that software-defined storage becomes portable as well. Red Hat Virtualization is a on-premise data center virtualization platform, and Red Hat OpenStack Platform is our infrastructure as a service private cloud solution. We also have cloud management technologies and Red Hat Insights, which manages Linux wherever it's running. So this full stack of technologies is something that gives you the capabilities to build a hybrid cloud and run and manage it quite easily. But being an enterprise software company and working with a lot of big enterprise customers, including government and public sector customers for years, we know that security is very important, right? So Red Hat has invested heavily into the security infrastructure of all of our technologies, from Red Hat Enterprise Linux to the storage capabilities to OpenShift. We've built and implemented a lot of capabilities around security that make it something that will be robust and run in your data center or in the cloud and gives you confidence that you're going to be secure. So you can think of Red Hat as sort of a unifying layer across on-prem, hybrid, and multi-cloud, right? It gives you the cloud agility that you want from running on these public clouds or in hybrid cloud mode, but it also gives you developer productivity because applications are very, very fast and easy to develop and deploy applications on OpenShift. It gives you application portability. When you run OpenShift on different clouds, you can move your applications that you built across them. But most importantly, probably gives you enterprise stability and security. Red Hat has been building enterprise open software with an open source development model for 20 years, and so we know how to do that. So, in summary, really, it's really about accelerating application delivery and business innovation. That's what all of our goals are for driving the business forward. And so you can do that if you take advantage of the hybrid cloud technologies and what we call at Red Hat, the open hybrid cloud. A few customers have been doing this quite successfully. Cathay Pacific has seen 10 times increased application development throughput by running OpenShift. Hilton has gone from months to days in terms of accelerating their development time. They're really speeding the ability to build applications and get them deployed. And Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam has seen a 50% reduction in the development time for new services. They're able to launch a new cloud platform in 10 days. So these kind of speed ups, if you will, this acceleration of delivering applications and services is really fundamentally what we need and what we want. And that's what a container platform built on Kubernetes like OpenShift can do for you. So with that, I'll wrap it up there and happy to take any questions.
Yes, great presentation, Dan. I learned a lot about OpenShift and Kubernetes. I know the audience did as well. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. Let's see. First one, they're saying, I thought Kubernetes made applications portable. Are they not?
Well, that's a great question, and I touched on this a little bit, but it's kind of a tricky, nuanced notion. By running an application in a container, you are isolating it, you're separating it to a certain extent from the operating system underneath. But as I mentioned, you're still running a piece of the operating system in the container, and so you want that operating system to be the same for what's in the container and what's underneath it. So they can be portable. You can containerize applications, and they can be portable. You can move them to different clouds, as long as you can do it. And the most safe way to do it is by running the same operating system on those different clouds, right? So as I mentioned, Red Hat Enterprise Linux can run on the different clouds. If you're running your containers and they're built with OpenShift and they have the RHEL user space libraries inside them, then you're going to be perfectly safe moving those containers from one cloud to the next. The challenge and the risk you take is if you build containers on one Linux operating system and then move them and try to run them on a different one. You really just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a great point. I bet a lot of people don't take into account is how important the underlying operating system really is. Let's see, another question here. Is it possible to run monolithic or stateful applications in containers on Kubernetes?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Kubernetes was first started, people were just thinking, we're just going to build these cloud native applications, right? Which were all stateless and they're microservices based and they're horizontally scalable and everything. And that's what we're building Kubernetes for. Well, when Red Hat got involved with the project, with our enterprise software background, we knew that a lot of big enterprise organizations are not going to be able to just build all new applications, right? They are going to have some older applications that they're going to want to run and probably run them in containers. And those applications may be stateful applications where they need the data to exist all the time, or sort of a monolithic application that's not broken up into a bunch of different microservices. And so Red Hat worked with the Kubernetes upstream open source team, and we helped them build something called stateful sets, which are a capability to allow you to manage and run stateful applications. So you can now, especially with Red Hat OpenShift, we've engineered it to be able to support either modern cloud native applications or more what we call classic applications that are maybe stateful or more monolithic.
Very nice. Yeah, I know that opens up Kubernetes to so many more companies out there with stateful and older monolithic applications still. Another question here, is OpenShift more than just Kubernetes?
It is. So Kubernetes is, again, this open source project that was created to manage containers and orchestrate them at scale. Interestingly, side note is that Kubernetes was created by something that Google ran internally to run containers that was called the Borg. And so they took the best parts of the Borg and then they open sourced it and created Kubernetes. But Kubernetes is really just that. It's just the orchestration platform, sort of the operational side of running containers. OpenShift has added a lot of capabilities around the developer experience, right? The developer IDE that's built in, the CI/CD tooling that we provide with OpenShift to allow you to build continuous delivery pipelines for your applications to really speed up delivery of the software. And then there's also some operational capabilities we've added in terms of monitoring capabilities and logging capabilities with Prometheus and other tools like that. So what we've done is we've taken the core Kubernetes and we've added a lot of kind of open source projects to it that help round out and make a complete platform. And then we've made that bulletproof, right? We've made that enterprise grade and certified it. And so that's what we package up and ship as OpenShift, really to allow developers to work quickly, to allow operations teams to be able to manage this thing with ease, even with a lot of automation. We have automation technology called OpenShift operators that allow people to automatically deploy software and automatically deploy upgrades to the platform itself. So it is more than just the Kubernetes. It is really a full application platform, if you will, for building and running applications.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, enterprises need much more than just Kubernetes, and you make a great case for that. Let's see. Final question I think we have time for, that is, how should companies get started with OpenShift? Is there a evaluation or what can they do to give it a try?
Yeah, we've got a great resource at Red Hat, actually. There's a OpenShift branded website called openshift.com, and one page on that site is called learn.openshift.com. So if anybody has interest, they can go to learn.openshift.com, and there's a ton of videos and tutorials and even an easy way to try it out yourself. So that's a great resource. All the documentation is up there as well. So again, learn.openshift.com is a great place to get your feet wet with OpenShift and Kubernetes.
It's been a great presentation. I learned a lot about OpenShift. Thank you so much for being on the event today, Dan.
All right. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Great presentation by Dan at Red Hat, all about OpenShift. I learned a lot. Hope you all did as well. I popped up a poll question on the screen, and that is, what additional information would you like about the Red Hat solution? I'll just leave that up while we do our next prize announcements. We have a grand prize as well as a gift card to give away. I do want to point out, if you have questions about containers and Kubernetes and OpenShift and Red Hat, go ahead and get those questions in, and I'll route those questions to Dan for him to get back to you on after today's event. So prize winners. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Sang Ting from Texas, Sengting from Texas. Congratulations on your gift card win. And then our first Google Pixel grand prize, first of 5, is going out to Kirk Yamoto from California. Congratulations, Kirk Yamoto from California. Stay tuned. We have 4 more gift cards and 4 more Google Pixel phones to give away still on the Cloud MegaCast event. And with that, it's time to get moving on to our next presentation on the Cloud MegaCast. I'm excited to introduce Miles Ward, Chief Technology Officer at SADA. Miles, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for being on the event today, Miles. Take it away.
Great. My name's Miles. I'm CTO at SADA. SADA is a company that helps businesses implement the kinds of cloud technology that you've been hearing about all day and that you'll hear for the rest of the day. The picture that's on screen is one of Google's cloud data centers. They operate at a very radically different scale than all the technology companies you've been exposed to before. Remember, they've built 8 products that serve over 1 billion users. So it's a system that spans the planet, a system that's designed to handle all of the kinds of problems that you run into. What I hear from customers is that they live in the real world. They need solutions not that look like, they're designed for the Starship Enterprise or, pulled out of a Crayola cartoon full of colors. They need solutions to real world problems. They're trying to design systems that are built for security, that anticipate their regulatory complexity, that recognize the level of, some people call it legacy. I call them legendary applications that sit in their services. That mission to move from inefficient and potentially insecure and cost-ineffective systems into a real-world solution that solves those problems is a giant drive for change in major businesses. What we see companies trying to do is first to get a handle on their data, to better understand the information that they use to drive the business, to integrate that data into other sources and services to be able to bring value from that data out to their customers, to connect new applications to those sources of data, and then to be able to build a machine learning loop on top of that information. If this is the path for modernization for the majority of companies, how do you actually get started with that? What are the tools that you need to bring to bear in order to be able to capture the opportunity of digital transformation? SADA, my team, has been doing this for almost 20 years and has successfully implemented customer after customer after customer in their migration to public cloud and to value in these 4 distinct areas. I heard at the beginning of the brief that there were 4 basic values folks wanted to get out of today's call. They wanted to understand efficiency, scalability, agility, and lower costs. We have case studies from customers that we've served where they've earned all of those benefits. We worked with the folks at FoodJet who were bogged down by complicated management of AWS and the requirement to manage virtual machines and networks and all the complexity of instrumenting for scale. We helped them move to Google's App Engine, a completely hands-off platform as a service that solves the operations problems for customers. And the result of that has been a substantial increase in developer efficiency, much better customer experience through the integration of machine learning in their customer use loops, and a completely hands-off approach to security for their front end. 100% of that is managed by Google. If you're looking for scalability, take a look at the work that FlowPlay has done. They build games on top of cloud platforms, but they had been working as well in an on-prem environment, a place where their servers maybe were holding them back from innovating more quickly. They evaluated all three of the major clouds, Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud, and found because of higher performance, their system response speed over doubled. They automatically earn DDoS protection against the distributed denial of services that can be so damaging for businesses like this, and have been able to shift focus to the features and games that their customers want, not the just sort of administrative and infrastructural legwork required to do the basics. Same kind of story about agility from the folks at Formedica. They had huge transaction volumes and are encumbered by the regulatory complexity of HIPAA compliance, but identified that by using Kubernetes, by working together with the teams at Google Cloud, they were able not only to operate on that regulated data and in a way that is compliant with those regulations, but increase performance by over 50%, get to speed and savings on storage that are substantial over their existing environment, and get to a place where they're deploying changes in hours instead of days. That's literally a more agile business. We also worked with the folks at Northgate Mall to lower their costs. They estimate over $300,000 in annual savings because of the move from their on-premise data center combined with AWS into the infrastructure provided by GCP. So okay, you can get to efficiency, you can get to scalability, you can get to agility and lower costs using the tools of public cloud and specifically GCP. How do you actually get there, right? There's a huge amount of technology to learn. These platforms are all fairly complex. There's a lot to get your company onboarded into an environment like that. I think SADA, where I work, is the best partner that you can use to be able to achieve those outcomes. I think we're the best because Google thinks we're the best. We're the ones who were called the Global Reseller Partner of the Year. We're number one in GCP, number one in G Suite, number one in Maps deployments, number one in Google Search. We really are the trusted supplier of implementation expertise for companies trying to get started on their path to digital transformation. Those services are not just about tech support to answer your questions or consultation to describe what the best practice is to move forward. We really deliver an end-to-end service for cloud consulting, cloud migration, change management, even custom app development. Those kinds of efforts help you take what we think are confident steps forward into public cloud instead of it all feeling like a mystery. We've heard from lots of customers that they keep putting a migration or a modernization on the whiteboard, but that they can never really pencil out how much is it going to cost, how long is it going to take, how do I mitigate all of the risks associated with that fundamental change. So SADA, because of the cyclical, repeated experience in the work with customers successfully migrating them, we've done this enough times, something that most companies really only ever do once every 3 or 4 years. We're doing it hundreds of times a year. So we have enough information to be able to make it predictable for you. That means complete flat rate packages. I mean, like, I will commit to you how much it costs before we start, because I've done it enough times that I can make that bet. I can also commit to you how long it will take. Sometimes time really is money. Being able to get the change that you need to make made in a predictable time frame can be sometimes just as valuable as it being on a predictable budget. We've done this thousands of times across Google's products. We have a very close relationship with Google engineering, and we're able to support you 24/7 through that kind of move. Whether you're trying to make a migration of virtual machines like VMs in VMware or AWS or Azure, if you want to have us help you migrate those images into Google Cloud and help you design an infrastructure for running those, that's the kind of engagement where we're seeing companies take big value in capturing the capabilities of public cloud. Maybe it's not just virtual machines, and you're trying to work also on the databases that sit behind them. All of the different tools, the Hadoop and Cassandra, Mongo, Oracle, all the different data systems that you're using, there are either direct equivalents in Google Cloud or workalikes that are so much higher performance and higher reliability that you'll really want to migrate. But the transition between those two is complex, right? If your database goes offline, typically that means your application goes offline. So you're going to need not only a team like SADA that's done this, again, hundreds of times, but the tooling to systematize that migration in a way that's predictable and reliable. And I hear all the time from customers, they say, I love public cloud. I think the idea sounds awesome. It's clear that it's less expensive, that it's an easier path to a more secure environment, that it provides the efficiency and scalability and agility and lower cost that we talked about. But maybe I have a reason that I just physically can't go to those data centers. Or my regulators say it's impossible for you to run in public cloud. Or I've got a customer that demands my software or my service land inside their four walls. Google has built a software package called Anthos, a service for orchestrating public cloud resources that sit on your own computers. It's an entirely new model for public cloud where Google is bringing some of its secret sauce, some of its magic down into machines you build. And we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of racks of equipment. I'm talking about a toaster. This is a my team built just to be able to fit in overhead luggage that's powerful enough to run a little piece of the public cloud. And we built, just like we have a package for moving VMs and for moving databases, I even have a package for implementing Anthos, the inter-cloud operating system, the tool that will be used to orchestrate the deployment of application software irrespective of the infrastructure management environment that you operate in. Doesn't matter whether it's public cloud or your own toaster, you can run the same app. We know what that implementation process looks like because we've literally had to document it in writing for every one of our customers. It's a totally standard part of SADA's engagement model is to walk you through step by step, what are we going to do together? How are we going to evaluate that it works right? How do we make sure that you've gotten the value you want out at the end of our engagement? Not just the promise of it working. We need to prove it to you. And whether that system runs in one of those little toasters on your desk and you're able to take advantage of Google's sophisticated technology that way, or it runs on the largest physical infrastructure available in the world on a network 5.5 times the size of the public internet, being powered by over $30 billion in direct investment by Google, that infrastructure is available for you to use. It is the platform for the next generation of businesses, and we're excited to help companies take you there. We think this is the right platform for you to choose, and that ours is the right team to choose to take you to that platform. That team is dedicated, full-time, certified, credentialed engineers, aligned with the needs of customers, experienced in the work that you maybe only do every once in a while, but we do every day, the work of transforming businesses, changing the way that they work, and taking them forward to what's next, whether that's improving your virtual machines, helping you with the move from Office to G Suite, getting better information about the world around you through Google Maps, taking advantage of Google Search, or the migration into the world of containers beyond virtual machines. All of that, data science, data analysis, the integration work that you need to do are all a part of both professional services as well as managed services offerings from our North America-focused team. We are designed to plug into customers and work with them every day to be successful. And if something like this sounds interesting to you, not just as potentially a customer, but maybe as a team member, we're also totally hiring. So our growth rate is pretty incredible, and we're really excited to help plug into the next generation of engineers who will help customers move forward. That's what SADA does. That's how we do it. I'm super interested in your questions about Google Cloud, about Alphabet and Google's broader strategy around this technology world, about how SADA interfaces with Google and what our partnership looks like, maybe details about the technologies that I described or the ways that they can be applied to problems, or any questions about customers or other businesses that are finding great value from the platform. Really looking forward to your questions.
Great presentation, Miles. Really, really compelling. Cool stuff. Let's pop up this poll question. I'll just bring this up. What additional information would you like about the SADA solution? And we'll just keep that up while we do some Q&A. So let's see. Some questions came in here. First question I wanted to ask you is about Anthos. They're asking, basically, how can Anthos help me exactly? What does it do? What problems does it solve?
Sure. So Anthos installs and manages Kubernetes, which is a system for orchestrating the deployment of containers, which is an environment for running your software or software that you've purchased. It also installs and manages Istio, a secure network configuration environment that allows those software applications to communicate over entirely encrypted channels and to give you the kinds of operational controls like A/B testing or canary monitoring or circuit breaker patterns to maintain high availability. It also has a function called Anthos Migrate that automates the conversion of virtual machine images into container images. Yeah, just like the old VMware stuff that you could go from physical machines to VMs, now you can go from VMs to containers. And the results of that are double-digit percentage increases in utilization and efficiency on the infrastructure. Anthos is different than say GKE, Google's management environment for Kubernetes, in that it can run on-premise on bare metal hardware, and they are working very hard to be able to run on additional public cloud environments as well. That's all a part of the strategy of making it so that Anthos is the one API that you interact with to orchestrate your applications irrespective of where they run.
Very nice, very nice. And I'm curious, what have you seen in terms of interest and adoption around Kubernetes? Have a lot of companies migrated applications to Kubernetes, or do they plan to?
Yeah, we're seeing really substantial interest. There's almost no customer conversation that we're having where Kubernetes isn't a part of the discussion and a part of the strategy for businesses moving forward. I mean, I think if you look on GitHub, you'll see that it is in the top most popular open source projects ever. Like if Linux is number one, I believe Kubernetes is number two. So that level of focus, again, not only just from Google or from SADA as a contributor, but from the broader ecosystem of technology companies. Red Hat was just presenting. They contribute upstream to Kubernetes. IBM does. AWS does. Azure does. All of us are working together to try and construct a standard that allows interoperability and higher utilization and higher efficiency, not only for the infrastructure, but for the poor operators who have to boss it around. They should have an easier job too.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's great to hear. And I'm also curious, the handout here that you all have in the audience console, it's all about your VM migration, the flat rate service. When people think about public cloud, maybe not everybody thinks about Google immediately. For those out there who haven't looked at Google, what do you think is unique or beneficial about Google maybe over some of the other cloud options?
Sure. Maybe three different major areas. First, I think if you're interested in your data and you want to better understand how to manage and operate and derive value from the information you have access to and your company is collecting every day, there isn't any better environment than Google's environments. You have to imagine, given that they're adding on the order of 25 tons of new disk every day to their data centers, they are doing quite a lot with data and have been able to monetize one of the world's highest performance businesses on the back of better understanding and analysis of data. They're taking the keys to the kingdom, the best tools they have, and making them available to every customer through Google Cloud. That transfer of value, being able to go from, SQL Server, where my user manual at my startup said anything above 100 transactions a second requires changes to the laws of physics, to Spanner, the database at Google, where my easy demonstration at Velostrada was 60 million transactions a second. There is just a huge difference. Second item that's super important is looking through the scale of operations that Google operates. So compare, AWS is built on top of Amazon, and an e-commerce website is a seriously hard workload. And Azure is built on top of the data centers built for Windows Update. And updating every PC in the world is a seriously hard workload. But I would be willing to bet that searching the entirety of the public internet, hosting everybody's email, managing all the maps, the 2 billion Android phones, and all of the advertising, and those are much more technically demanding workloads. They require much more physical infrastructure. And so Google's scale allows it to solve problems that some of the others struggle with. And the third area that I'd have you pay really close attention to is all of those products, the billion user services, they're all sold without user manuals, without help guides. That we've trained 1 billion people how to use these products because they're intuitive. And what we're hearing back from developers is they muscled their way through how to understand AWS because it was the only game in town and it was the only way for them to get access to an infrastructure they could rent by the minute. But given an exposure to Google's infrastructure, it's so much easier and it doesn't fight you every day. And the proof is in the churn rates. Customers leave AWS. They tend not to leave Google. They like it.
Very compelling, interesting stuff. I hadn't heard those before, so that's good info. Another question here they're asking about, can GCP help me if we want to keep our data on premises? Like, are there other ways that the Google Cloud can help with data protection or storage or DR, or, what do you recommend?
Yeah, the Anthos service that I described is on-premise. So you take your current VMware infrastructure, I bring out new machines if you need extra capacity, we install Anthos over the top, and now you have the ability to land workloads in a private environment, but using the ease of use from public cloud, the simplicity of access, the easy low overhead for utilization, right? We hear, a good example is the folks I worked with at Spotify. They had an incredibly sophisticated development environment. They were publishing 2 changes a week to their primary production systems, and that sounds pretty good. By moving to GKE powered, which is the same system that runs inside of Anthos, they're now at 5,000 production deploys a day, right? It's like faster for their developers, and that means they earn more value more quickly.
Nice. I like that. I'm going to have to look at Anthos myself. You got me excited here. Let's see, another question. Can SADA and Google Cloud help me if I'm in a regulated industry like healthcare or finance or government?
Yeah, some of, even the case study that I put on here for Medica, they're a healthcare provider regulated under HIPAA. We definitely have customers in all of those categories, plenty of experience helping people implement PCI compliance. I'm personally the guy who represented Google at the FedRAMP moderate attestation, so happy to help with government workloads, state and local as well. We really have the expertise required to be exemplary in those sorts of situations. And when you're in that kind of situation, what you need is someone who's exemplary.
Nice. Another question, actually, you got Thomas out here. He's interested. What experience are you looking for in career candidates? You said you were hiring.
Sure. Yeah, we are hiring. We're looking for, folks that have worked in production contexts. They understand the complexity and the pressure and the sophistication that customers expect when they're running something for real, not just sort of an experiment or a sideline project. We're looking for folks that are familiar with cloud environments. Context and background from AWS or Azure or Google Cloud are very useful. We're also interested in people that can document. They have the ability to learn, that can show us that they've learned new stuff, because this environment is changing so rapidly. A big part of what it takes to be successful is just a consistent learning process, which SADA is a really big proponent of, and we support for our employees. So it's definitely a place where we hope you come to teach, and we hope you come to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. Very nice. Another question here. You may have answered this already. I'm not sure. What's the biggest system you've seen run on Google Cloud, and can Google Cloud handle my business workload?
Sure. I've seen some pretty massive stuff. I was a part of the operations team that worked with Pokemon Go. Pokemon ran on Kubernetes, ran on Google Cloud, and was 53 times larger than the worst case they described to us in a matter of less than a week. For a chunk of time, they were operating, hundreds of thousands of individual containers supporting millions and millions of users around the world. Maybe another example that people would be familiar with, I helped architect and design the migration for Twitter's production use of Google Cloud. They are in production running their Hadoop workloads, which is 600,000 cores, over 300 petabytes of active data. It's data that you weigh in tons. I also worked together with the folks that were supplying the use of BigQuery, Google's managed data warehouse, to the team at Motorola, and that's reviewing and evaluating the logs of literally billions of phone devices. They were doing interactive ad hoc queries on multi-petabyte data sets without, no operations, no checking. So the scale of that stuff is typically, hundreds, if not thousands of times larger than the average customers in need. Most of our customers, most of the companies that are out there working, they're trying to get their website to work, and they're trying to get the databases interacting, and they're trying to make it so that the new applications that they build can scale. Google's really ready for that, and SADA is ready to help.
Awesome. Another question here. Chris is asking, I've heard that Google Cloud is less expensive than AWS, Azure, and IBM. Can you comment?
Yeah, there's a blog post series of them called Understanding Cloud Pricing that I wrote while I was at Google. And then there's a even more recent post from our team that describes the transitive property. So we sponsored detailed TCO analysis by the folks at ESG, and AWS has sponsored detailed TCO analysis from IDC. Both of those show, first, that public cloud in general is materially cheaper. I believe the IDC number is in the 60% range, cheaper than an on-prem environment. And what my research under ESG showed was a 40+% discount from AWS coming to GCP. So GCP is way cheaper than your data centers, absolutely price competitive versus the rest. And independent of the individual building blocks, the actual negotiation process and the kinds of relationships that Google's ready to make from a partnering standpoint are just dramatically more flexible and in line with what I think modern decision makers want to take on. So it's not just a better deal, it's an easier deal.
Very nice. Very compelling. Let's see, another question here. Can SADA help with training around cloud native applications or migrating apps to cloud native?
Yeah, we run training programs all the time. We're one of Google's certified training delivery partners. We're also contributory to some of the open source and public training materials that are available. Happy to talk with customers about a dedicated training course just for their teams, or maybe they want to get a couple companies local together to share the bill for one. But absolutely happy to help customers not only sort of think through the issues, but get hands-on with this technology in practice so that they can see how containers work and how a cloud-native design is just going to prove to deliver, better risk mitigation versus more traditional designs.
Okay, nice. Another question here is about once they migrate virtual machines, say to Google Cloud, to create kind of a hybrid cloud, how do they stretch the networking? Is there some networking overlay, or how does that work?
Yeah, so, there's this thing called the OSI model that describes the different layers that you need to be able to establish communication. So first you'll build a layer 2 networking connection to Google's infrastructure. You can either, do that over what's called dedicated interconnect. Other cloud providers have similar tools. Above that, you can run a logical security layer like a VPN, or you can do that independently over the public internet. The same security capabilities apply. When you're above that into layer 7, Istio, the technology that I described, it automatically implements MTLS encryption and manages that encryption, rotates the keys, maintains certificate authority, all of that kind of complicated, potentially fraught with misconfiguration risk sort of work is stuff that's automatically implementable, both on-prem in Anthos delivered through Google and in cloud through GKE delivered on the Google side. So you can build an end-to-end network mesh, all in private, all not connected to the public internet, non-routable, but spanning the globe if you need. And Google's backbone is so incredible that it doesn't matter whether you're trying to connect to a data center that's in the next county over, or a data center in India, or the ones they've announced in now in Indonesia, right? There's huge geographic scope. So lots of companies pick public cloud specifically because that means that they get access to this global market.
Excellent. A great answer. Well, Miles, it looks like that's all the questions we have. It's been really great having you on the event today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate the cycles.
And thank you to SATA Systems for supporting today's event. Make sure you check out that handout there in your audience console. It's entitled SATA VM Migration Flat Rate, and it has all kinds of details on their virtual machine migration service to Google Cloud. There's also info in there on Anthos. So make sure you download that handout while it's there, and you can read it after the event. Of course, also visit SADA.com, SADA.com for more information. All right, now it's time for another prize giveaway. We have an Amazon $500 gift card, and that is going out to Richard Lert from California. Sorry, Richard, I cannot pronounce your last name, but it starts with Lert. Richard Lert from California. And we have a grand prize, a Google Pixel going to Tony Maynard from North Carolina. Congratulations, Tony Maynard from North Carolina. We have 3 more grand prizes and 3 more gift cards to give away, so stay tuned for that. And now I'm excited to introduce the next presenter on today's Cloud MegaCast. That is Krish from Nutanix. Krish is the Director of Product Marketing. Take it away, Krish.
Thank you for joining us on this webinar. Over the next 20 to 25 minutes, we'll talk about why you need private cloud and how to go about building one. My name is Krishnan Badrinarayanan, Director of Product Marketing at Nutanix. Now, CEOs need you to drive growth. It is only when companies obsess about customer experience, products and services, market dynamics, and leverage technology to improve those products and services that they truly help their companies gain competitive advantage. And there's no better time than now for you as members of the IT organization to lean in the boardroom and help your CEOs disrupt as opposed to be disrupted. However, all that is easier said than done. We still need to go through that very painful process of negotiating with multiple vendors to acquire the different elements of the infrastructure in the data center, then carefully integrate them before they are deployed into production, and then manage all this complex infrastructure across silos of specialists, one for storage, compute, networking, virtualization, etc. And then when stuff happens, when problems occur, you need to come together in these war rooms and stare at our specialized monitoring and management tools and figure out what really was the root cause of the problem. And quite often we descend to being human and find ourselves blaming each other for the problem as opposed to focusing on fixing it. And then those very enviable upgrade cycles, having to spend the weekend to very carefully take down parts of the infrastructure, run upgrades, bring them back up, and have this activity span across several weeks. And before you know it, 3 to 5 years have passed, and it's time to plan for data center refresh or expansion. It is no wonder that we, as members of the IT community and parts of the IT infrastructure and operations organization, find that we spend over 80% of our time in the infrastructure and only 20% on what our stakeholders, app owners, developers, customers, employees care about, which is applications. And we all understand why it is important to have the strong bedrock of infrastructure to run these applications and services upon. However, our stakeholders don't quite understand that. All they care about is the applications, data, and the services they access. In fact, we conducted a survey asking IT leaders across the globe, much like yourselves, asking them this specific question: do application developers work with you when they need resources? And 57% of the respondents said that application developers constantly circumvent IT. IT is perceived as a retardant for innovation and not one that fosters innovation. And this is something we have to change. Now, we as members of the IT community are smart. We understand that it's infrastructure that's holding us back from being great. So, as of 2016 or so, the consensus, rather, was to move to public cloud. And this immediately enables IT organizations to help their stakeholders deploy applications in minutes and basically get to market rapidly. It also enables them to pay for exactly what they need and not lock budget in 3 to 5 year buying cycles. There's also this perception of simple management, and the infrastructure also gets better over time. You've got armies of engineers at the cloud vendor that is constantly refreshing infrastructure, running upgrades on the IT organization's behalf. However, the public cloud is not suited for all types of workloads. Let's take, for instance, data gravity. There are petabytes of data that are being generated every single day by employees, sensors, customers, cameras, and it's impossible, if not cost prohibitive, to move all this data to a public cloud environment where the application can then process the data. Applications have to co-reside with data where it originates as opposed to the other way around. Second is this concern around regulations. GDPR in Europe, and certainly those regulations that restrict how we store and manage data impact us and our day-to-day lives as members of the IT organization. This restricts how we store data and where we store it. And this is where public cloud use cases may not address some of those regulatory concerns. Thirdly is this notion of loss of control. The public cloud is incredibly secure. However, it is still upon the public cloud customer, to ensure that the data and applications are protected on top of the secure public cloud environment. And not being able to run your own tailored security solutions that restrict and prevent any threats from exploiting your data and applications could put customers at a vulnerable state. And finally, the public cloud basically has limitless resources, and it is very easy to undergo cost overruns when you make the public cloud available to the various parts of the organization in your company. And it's no wonder that cloud-based workloads are returning on premises for many of these reasons. IDC conducted a survey asking global IT leaders whether they planned to move applications back on premises, and if so, how many of those applications. And 85% of the respondents said that they intend to move over 50% of their applications that are cloud-based back on premises over 2 years. And let's not forget, 4 out of 5 workloads are still on premises, and we need a solution for these on-premises workloads as well. So in reality, what organizations really need is a balance between private cloud for those highly predictable, low latency, high performance applications that require greater control, and the public cloud, which is suited for cloud bursting, elastic workloads, cloud native workloads, and for those innovative projects that the developers spin up and then begin to incubate before they are brought into the private cloud. Now, to accomplish this hybrid cloud strategy, the rite to passage is private cloud. Organizations need to not just transform their technology, but also update their processes and skills to practice these processes within IT organizations. So you really need to achieve private cloud operational excellence before you think about adopting hybrid cloud. So how do you go about bringing the cloud inside? First, it has to be incredibly easy, just like public cloud, to deploy, upgrade, expand non-disruptively, manage centrally, and still have it support all the multiple use cases, applications, and data needs that exist in the organization. Secondly, it has to be intelligent. It has to automate away all those mundane, repetitive, and daily tasks that happen and force your IT staff to focus upon so that they can finally spend all their time delivering critical services and focusing on strategic initiatives. And thirdly, it has to be resilient. It has to be able to secure your applications and data from internal and external threats, and also ensure that end users are not impacted by downtime by having strong business continuity measures in place. And this is what is needed to give you that peace of mind. So what we need to be really thinking about is, when we think about building a private cloud, is how do we align to business needs? How do we get closer to the business? And to do that, we need to be able to be agile and respond to business needs as and when they are required, to do so without breaking the bank, and while ensuring that all promised SLAs are met. And to do that, we need to be able to arm our IT teams to be able to standardize upon simple and scalable infrastructure that can scale out as use cases, applications, and data grows, that enables them to consolidate critical data services upon this cloud-like platform so that they're able to expand with data growth while still service the multiple use cases, employees, and customers with data needs across the organization. Then they need to be able to really enable IT teams to be able to increase their productivity at increasing rates of quality. And this is only done through intelligent automation that is powered by machine learning, AI, and an ability to be able to put in place self-service experiences that enable IT to become a service organization. Once you have this, you need to be able to have a strong posture for business continuity. And this means that you need to be able to recover seamlessly when primary infrastructure goes down, and you need to be able to back up those most valuable applications and data for compliance reasons or for long-term retention or archival use cases. Then at every stage of this journey, you need to have a strong security posture and a strong posture for governance, so you're able to identify which groups in the organization are consuming resources at what level, so you can have better planning as a result of that. So the very first step in this journey is to be able to set that foundation to build that simple and scalable infrastructure. And here's what we are used to having today: this classic traditional infrastructure model where you have compute farms, storage networking, SANs, virtualization layers that sit on top of this infrastructure before you actually get to focus on those applications. Now, what we need to be able to do is consolidate all of this entire stack into a single form factor, which basically equates one unit of cloud that can run on a variety of hardware platforms. So it's decoupled, software defined, and runs on a variety of hardware platforms that are available in the market today. And this unit of cloud should be infinitely scalable as needs grow. It should also support a variety of virtualization and containerization technologies, right from ESXi, Hyper-V, Kubernetes, and also Nutanix is proud to provide AHV, which is a free-for-all built-in virtualization capability. And then begin to absorb the management of virtualization alongside other elements of the infrastructure, be it compute, storage, or networking. Now, this cloud-like platform has to be easy to manage, just like the public cloud, from day zero to day n, and all from one single user interface. It should also be intelligent so that it places applications alongside the data that the application relies upon to increase efficiency, increase performance. And when there's resource contention in a specific node in the cluster, it should be able to migrate the application and data over to other nodes that have more resources to provide for it. And thirdly, it has to be resilient so that data is replicated in the smallest slices and distributed across nodes in the cluster. So in the event of a data loss, it's able to very quickly recreate that segment of data without choking the network or impacting the application performance and eventually resulting in poor customer experience. Once you have this, you then need to focus on what's most important to the organization, which is its data. Data monetization is a key topic these days. And to do that, you need to have a very data-centric architecture in place where data can be served programmatically or otherwise to various stakeholders or applications in the organization. To do that, you need to tear down those silos that exist between not just data and application, but within data silos as well. And data fragmentation is a huge concern for organizations and would impact the organization's ability to be able to really put itself in a position to monetize its data. So to do that, Nutanix offers built-in data services across a variety of protocols, whether it's iSCSI, NFS-SMB, or S3, to support a variety of use cases. So take block data, for example, to serve and support virtual machines and email systems and databases, or file data, which is important for organizing user data through whether it's for departmental shares or for VDI use cases. And finally, object data, which is important for not just those DevOps use cases and developer productivity, but also to ensure that important information is being archived securely for later retrieval. Now, all of this is as easy to scale and manage as the underlying cloud platform is. It scales non-disruptively, expands as data needs grow, and it's self-managed unlike traditional storage. And finally, it also delivers key insights that you would need as members of the IT organization to be able to understand the nature of data that exists in your infrastructure, in your environment, and also to be able to detect anomalous behavior that occurs when it relates to your data. Next, you need to be able to enable members of the IT organization, system administrators, IT administrators, to be able to get done more, to increase their productivity. And this is what truly separates them from being infrastructure engineers to cloud engineers. With built-in machine learning and automation presented via a single web-based user interface, IT staff within your organization can reduce complex and repetitive tasks across the IT lifecycle to just a few clicks. They can deploy resources non-disruptively and scale their cloud during business hours. No longer do they have to work during weekends. They can manage and monitor servers, storage, and VMs from one place as opposed to multiple specialized tools. The system can also detect and automatically resolve anomalies in real time. There's no more needless firefighting that's required in this scenario. They can also perform upgrades from hardware to hypervisor with one click. This frees up weeks of careful planning and running of upgrades during off hours. Finally, you get an opportunity to use data and insights to plan for growth and for new projects. You no longer have to rely on Excel spreadsheets. The system uniquely understands how resources are consumed based upon existing workloads and users that are relying upon that environment. And this data then helps you with these planning processes. All this frees up maintenance time, ensures 24/7 performance, and enables you to get ahead of the needs of the business. And that's what cloud experiences are all about. This transition empowers you to take a more service-oriented approach to IT. To effectively do so, you need to focus on reducing time taken to resolve requests while raising quality, and this can only be done through automation. With fully integrated self-service capabilities delivered by Calm, which is a part of the Nutanix Cloud software, you can truly deliver IT as a service. You need to simply gather an inventory of the most commonly requested resources or applications and blueprint them and publish them onto an internal marketplace. Your stakeholders, whether they are business analysts or developers, can visit this app store and get what they need instantly. You can then free up time from having to manually service and close IT tickets while still ensuring and delivering instant gratification to your various stakeholders. You will still be able to retain control of the application instances that were deployed, which means that when a patch is released for a specific part of the application, you as the member of the IT organization can deploy these patches to ensure that your application is secure no matter what. And when those applications are no longer needed, you can retire those applications and release the resources back to the common pool. Now, as you're able to deliver applications and data services from your cloud, you need to be able to ensure that you have a reliable business continuity and disaster recovery practice in place that prevents disruption and data loss at all costs. And to do this, our software delivers the only fully integrated services for DR and backup with the choice of deployment and software. So you can either choose to start up a secondary site where you can fail over to and fail back from and use automated recovery plans to do so, or you can choose to consume it as a service. And this is Zyleap that's delivered as a service, a subscription service to our customers who would rather not dedicate infrastructure for a DR site. And for all those critical data and workloads, you can back it up onto an integrated best-in-class backup platform that's delivered by Nutanix, which enables you to manage this infrastructure alongside your primary infrastructure while still using best-in-class backup software that suits your needs. And for all that data that needs to be archived for long-term retention or for regulatory purposes, you can choose to do so using any S3 compliance services, including Nutanix objects. Finally, at every stage of the process, you need to be able to ensure a proper security posture. To do so, the software encrypts all data at rest and manages the keys required to access this data within the same environment. This helps you avoid having to actually purchase separate key management software and integrate it into the system. Next, it secures the applications that access this data using microsegmentation. And by creating walled gardens that prevent or control east-west traffic within your environment, you can begin to have strong security policies that protect your applications not just from external threats, but also from threats that exist within your environment. And finally, it also secures your cloud through strong authentication and authorization practices by being able to periodically run compliance checks to ensure that you're always in compliance from a security perspective, and self-healing capabilities bring your environment back to compliance if there were deviations from it. The software also supports a wide variety of standards that exist in the industry, and also supports a wide variety of security solutions that exist in the market, be it across firewalls, malware, antivirus, encryption, key management, or microsegmentation software. Finally, to truly become a cloud operator within your business, you need to be able to monitor, meter, and charge back actual costs, including usage and staff, to appropriate business units and departments. With Beam, this is the only private cloud solution that delivers this capability as a service. So to summarize, these are the critical capabilities you need within your organization to be able to build your private cloud before you move on to achieving your hybrid cloud strategy. And we hope you choose Nutanix to take with you on this journey using the software that we've invested in to help our customers succeed. And you have our guarantee to have your backs at every stage of this journey. We serve across over 100 countries with over 7 worldwide support centers, and our customer obsession shows in the 97% customer satisfaction score and a plus 90 net promoter score that we've held for over 5 years. And to prove to you that it delivers the value that you're looking for, IDC conducted an independent study and found that a Nutanix deployment lowers total cost of operations by over 60%, leads to over 97% fewer unplanned outages, and has an incredibly short payback period of 7 months. I'd like to thank you for your time.
I'm going to pop up the poll question that says, what additional info would you like about the Nutanix solution? And I'll just leave that up while we announce our next prize winners. So we have an Amazon $500 gift card, and that's going to Steve Gray from Missouri. Congratulations, Steve Gray from Missouri. And our next grand prize, another Pixel phone, is going to Martin Chen from Michigan. Congratulations, Steve Gray from Missouri on your gift card win, and Martin Chen from Michigan on the grand prize win. 2 more grand prizes and 2 more gift cards to give away still, so make sure you stay tuned because our next presentation is coming up. I'm excited to now introduce Meg Donlon, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rapid7. Meg, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, David. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for being on the Cloud MegaCast today. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Congrats again to Steve and Martin. I'm jealous. I wish I was winning something today, but I feel like I'm winning by being here with all of you. So appreciate the time. Again, my name is Meg Donlon. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Insight IDR here at Rapid7. And I'm excited to talk to you all today about our Cloud SIEM for modern threat detection and response. And I thought I'd kick things off by talking a little bit about why we created Insight IDR and some of the problems that we recognized in the industry that really drove the development and creation of Insight IDR. And at the crux of it is that when we talk to customers or when we go to events and speak with industry professionals, the overwhelming theme that we hear time and time again is just that security teams are facing more complexity than ever before. And this comes through in a few key areas. So the first is that visibility is lacking. Environments continue to sprawl. Teams are, spinning up cloud infrastructures very, very quickly. DevOps counterparts are moving faster than security teams can keep up with. And as a result, it's hard to keep track of who or what is roaming about in the network. The second way that we see complexity is that alerts are too noisy. So the average enterprise is using sometimes 40 or more security tools. They're all firing alerts. Teams oftentimes do not have the resources to tune these alerts to their organization. And as a result, they're getting lots and lots of alerts every day. Many teams don't even have the bandwidth to look at all of them, and never mind, dealing with false positives or things like that. This bleeds into the third issue that we see a lot, which is that investigations are taking way too long. On average, it's taking 3/4 of a year for teams to recognize that a breach has happened and then remediate that breach. So on average, a little more than 200 days to find the breach and then 80 days or so to remediate it. That's way too long when you consider that attacks happen in seconds or minutes. So there's a discrepancy there and a deficit where attackers have the advantage today. And then as a summation of all of those things, it's just getting harder. It's harder to keep up. And a recent Poneman study found that 65% of security professionals are so burnt out that they want to quit their jobs. So we don't want that. We want to promote security in the industry and make everybody successful. And we believe to be successful, security teams need to find efficiencies that help save them time and give them an edge against all of this complexity. And so with that, Rapid7 has created the threat detection and response portfolio that you see here. And there's 3 core pieces. And the first is Insight IDR, our flagship kind of threat detection and response technology, which I'll be talking a lot about today. This is our Cloud SIEM. The next is our Managed Detection and Response team. And this team is responsible for essentially taking care of all aspects of threat detection for the customers that are leveraging the service. They leverage our Insight IDR technology themselves, and they also inform the development of Insight IDR. So there's a nice reciprocal kind of process there where we're able to leverage the insights from our SOC to inform a lot of the development and threat analytics and updates that go back into our product. And the third piece that you see there is Insight Connect. This is our Security Orchestration and Automated Response, or SOAR tool. And through Insight Connect, teams have access to almost 300 plugins and growing, and they're able to create workflows to help eliminate those redundant processes that often bog teams down or accelerate response time. So, trigger that chain reaction of events that needs to happen when an incident occurs. And so we see many people that are leveraging Insight Connect alongside IDR or MDR. And really, many customers use these 3 technologies in any combination or independently. But again, today I'm going to focus on Insight IDR, which is the technology that's underpinning that MDR service and from which many customers graduate into Insight Connect. A bit of a marketecture here for Insight IDR, and really the key things to know first and foremost is that Insight IDR was built from the start in the cloud. We are a SaaS SIEM offering, and we felt like that was important in terms of keeping up, allowing analysts to keep up with the complexities that they're facing today and to be able to scale and grow as their environment or their organization scales and grows. So there's a number of efficiencies that are recognized through our cloud hosting, which I'll talk more about in a moment. The other pieces to know are really the ways that we try to combat those challenges that I talked about at the start of the presentation. So the lacking visibility, the alert fatigue, and investigations taking too long. And there are a few key components to this. First, we collect and analyze data from across the modern network. So it's not just logs, it's also endpoint detection monitoring. There's network pieces that are increasingly being added. There's an ability to ingest custom data. There's ability to ingest AWS and Azure information. But we also take it a step further because we don't just ingest that data and then throw it back to analysts to kind of parse through and figure out what to do with. We also automatically enrich, correlate, analyze, and attribute much of that data. So we're turning that from just kind of raw information into actionable insights for teams. The other big piece worth noting is that we have a heritage here of user behavior analytics that's kind of core to our product. That's how we started. And we've married that with attacker behavior analytics. And as a result, teams get out of the box nearly 900 pre-built detections, but they're finely tuned again against that MDR team that I mentioned, and also various sources of threat intelligence and research from the broader Rapid7 threat intel community. So this includes things like Metasploit, Project Sonar, Project Heisenberg. All of that intel is feeding into the detections and the experience that our customers are using. And then in terms of response, we really want to help teams minimize that timeline from when something goes off to when it's remediated. And so we've done that in a few different ways. Again, the correlation and enrichment of information, so giving people all of the context that they need in one place. Visual investigations and timelines that make it really easy to follow along with what's happened in an incident. And we also provide some core automation functionality out of the box with Insight IDR, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But this is really the IDR product in a nutshell. And again, I'll underscore that the 3 kind of core things that we're focused on are removing that lack of visibility across the modern network. So it's important to us that we're able to aggregate diverse data sources and kind of push them all into one place. The next is that ability to detect attacks reliably and not create more work for analysts to have to parse through lots of false positives or noisy alerts. And the third is the ability to respond quickly and confidently to the things that are coming in because they have all of that context and information at their fingertips. And the summation of all of those things is more productivity and a value realization for our customers. So minimizing response time and maximizing efficiency, that's really what you need to know about Insight IDR right there. And we do that, again, through the reliable alerting, the high context investigations, correlation, and then the automation. So I touched on this very quickly a moment ago, but we've got some core automation functionality that we enable folks with right out of the box. So this includes things like kicking off case management with Jira or ServiceNow, enriching logs with open source threat intelligence, containing an asset on an endpoint with our Insight agent or Active Directory and things like that. And the results that we've seen from customers from our product and using this automation has been really impressive and exciting for us. And we're excited that we have Insight Connect in the portfolio because it just totally amplifies the results for folks. And we continue to see lots of our customers kind of start with these core workflows and then grow into Insight Connect as a tool to help them further just, find time savings and incorporate more automation into their incident response plan. So it's something that we're excited about and investing more in at Rapid7. And that lightweight cloud deployment is really one of the big pieces that we see our customers helps them realize that immediate return on their investment. And so if you look at our kind of peer reviews and things like that, this is going to come through as a big theme for us. And it's an area where we continue to see a lot of success. And teams are regularly up and running with Insight IDR, often as little as half a day. I was chatting with a customer the other day, and they were evaluating Insight IDR and a traditional SIEM, and they mentioned to me that they were able to get Insight IDR up and running fully with core event sources before they could unpack the boxes of hardware that they received from a competitor. So we were pretty excited about that, and that's really our goal, is we want to make it easy for folks without sacrificing great threat detection and response, and I think we've done a good job with that mission. I wanted to share one customer story just to illustrate some of the time savings and also how folks are using Insight IDR to help them tackle that problem of visibility across their sprawling environment. And this is Daniel Goldberg. We connected with him at Boost, which is our customer conference. He's the director of IT at Barton Associates, which is a staffing firm. And you can read the quote there. I won't read it verbatim, but Daniel, I encourage everyone to take a look at the case study on our website. He was telling us about how really the tedious journey of when an alert came in and the multiple processes that would kick off in their old tool for the team. They'd have to open multiple other tools to kind of go down that investigation path and try to put all these pieces of the puzzle together. And a lot of times they'd find that they didn't have all of the pieces that they need to solve the puzzle. So that was really hard for them, and it was actually getting harder as they were moving more of their infrastructure to AWS. So when they moved to IDR, they not only got visibility into all of their on-premises assets right away, we're also able to ingest those guard duty and CloudTrail logs very easily, and all of a sudden you've got a very rich picture of the infrastructure through a single pane of glass. So one of many examples that we're excited about and the type of success that we see customers telling us about all the time with Insight IDR. And so, again, I'll pause here. These are the kind of three keys that we focus on. I know we're coming up on time, but I do want to share just a quick preview of the platform just to help illustrate some of what I'm talking about. I'm going to pull that up very quickly. Okay, and here we go. Let me share my screen. And David, can you let me know when you're able to see my screen?
I'm looking. I don't see it quite yet. Oh, wait, something's coming up. Here we go.
Yep.
I see it. Looks good.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. Great. So this is the kind of Rapid7 homepage. If you're a customer using many of our Insight platform solutions, you'll log into that one page and you'll be able to see everything there. So there's a bit of efficiency there for our customers that are using multiple of our products. When you log into the Insight REDR homepage, you instantly get this kind of snapshot of what's happening in the network. So you see the users, the amount of events that have been processed over the last 24 hours, notable behaviors. So one thing that we try to do in IDR, again, going back to that point of really surfacing the most important alerts and our ability to do that based on our own feedback and refinement with the MDR team, we separate alerts from notable behaviors. So there may be things happening that we say, that's suspicious, but we're not cause for alarm right now, versus things that we say, oh, wait a minute, this is something serious that definitely needs more attention from an analyst. And so just like one of many things that have happened throughout this product with lots of feedback from customers and our MDR team and our UX researchers and customer support teams to ensure that at each phase of detection and response, we're making life a little bit easier for that analyst. And again, you can kind of track alerts through the attack chain here in the middle of the console. You can see ingress locations, map view here, processes that have run here on the right, potentially risky users. And again, I won't go through everything, but easy access to log search, very easy to configure new event sources in here. So it's really just a wizard experience that takes you through very easy to follow panels. It's very prescriptive about what you need to add, so there's no guessing and having to kind of run around the network finding the data sources that you need. There's auto configure options for the companies that want that. So we're excited, and I hope this was helpful, and we'd love for folks to try it. With that, David, I guess I'll hand it back to you to see if there's any questions.
All right, yeah, great demo, Meg. I love seeing the live demo. I know it takes a little bit longer sometimes to get it going. That actually didn't take very long at all, but it was well worth it. The user interface, I remember from the last time that Rapid7 presented, was very cool to see as well. I'm a big fan of beautiful user interfaces, and you all have one there with IDR. So let me pop up this poll question for the audience, and I'll just leave this up while we do Q&A. And that says, what additional information would you like about the Rapid7 solution? And that is a multi-select question. So let's see, Meg, the first question that came in, they're asking, is there any training available for IDR?
Yeah, absolutely. And one kind of tenet for us is not only are we trying to make things easy for folks in terms of the product and the usability and the features and things like that, but we also want to make it easy for folks to learn the way that they want to learn and to find information in their preferred way. And then for some people that means a formal kind of virtual training or talking to a support engineer, and we have both of those things. So we've got certified specialist trainings that folks can do. Obviously, we've got a support team for customers and all of those things. We also have very rich documentation that's just publicly available on our website at help.rapid7.com for anyone that wants to go in and peruse that or find that. And we also have the free trial, 30-day free trial experience. So for folks that want to get in there and kind of play around with it themselves, they can go into the free trial experience. And there's a kind of Compass Wizard that helps guide people through that process as they experience the free trial, so helping them kind of learn as they go. So there's lots of different options, and we also see a fair number of people who get in the product and for their objectives and the things they're trying to do, they're able to kind of figure it out intuitively just working through the product, which is exciting to see as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that must mean that it's very easy to get started. I also like the free trial. Thank you for bringing that up. Another question here, you might want to clarify, they're asking if there's any hardware required, and I understand this is a SaaS-based solution. Is that right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So we are a fully SaaS-based solution. There's no hardware requirements. We can monitor your hardware, but you don't have to install any hardware with Insight IDR. We collect data through our Insight agent, also through our collector technology and through APIs. And so we've got, native event source support for a number of different sources that we commonly see across different architectures. So, yep, you've got it correct.
Okay, great. And another question here is around compatibility. Is there some sort of hardware compatibility list as far as what can be collected or the sources of the data that can be collected, or does pretty much anything out there work?
So we're pretty expansive, and we're also, continually making efforts to, I touched on that visibility across the network. Like, we're really committed to that and wanting to make sure that as teams' environments grow, we're enabling them to have visibility into those new sources as they come up. So if folks are able to check out help.rapid7.com, they can get a list of event sources and some of the considerations and requirements, but I'd also throw in that we are regularly adding more all the time, particularly in the extensibility category and visibility into other tool sets. So yeah, that's a core kind of tenet of the product.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. Another question, can it monitor security events that happen in the public cloud?
Monitor security events that happen in the public cloud. Yeah, so we've got visibility into Azure and AWS today. And so we've got native event sources built out for either of those clouds. I would say that we're also able to ingest custom log sets from most sources, and we have a parsing tool that allows teams to create their own key value pairs with a simple highlight kind of drag and drop experience. And so if there is an event source that for some reason isn't covered today, which is increasingly not the case, but folks also, many industries have their own specific tools and things that they use, you can send that data into Insight IDR through our custom log ingestion, and then use that custom parsing tool to create essentially your own JSON, and then easily create custom rules, reports, dashboards, etc. off of that.
Okay, very nice. Sounds very flexible. Another question here, they're asking, once an event is, or we're notified about an event, essentially, what action do we take yet after that? Is the tool going to help us with that, or should we use like MDR?
So MDR is definitely a great option for some teams, and we see a lot of companies who are moving towards the MDR option because they just don't have the resources, or for their specific security objectives, they want to use MDR and then supplement with their own, use of IDR. And I should mention that with MDR, you get access to IDR as well. So a lot of our customers will leverage the expertise of the MDR team, and then they'll use IDR themselves for the response and the threat hunting and that type of thing. In IDR, we have those automation actions that folks can set up. So you can say, okay, when this type of user behavior analytic alert goes off, I want to automatically quarantine that user on the endpoint, or isolate that carbon black sensor, or things like that. So there's some pretty powerful workflows out of the box. Folks can also add notes on investigations. So if you are kind of working with a team and you want to start a set of precedents around a certain alert type, you can add notes there to kind of help guide and start to make that incident response kind of playbook as you would. So yeah, there's a number of different things that we see folks do to help streamline and kind of formalize response as they go through, and automation is a great place to start. And then for the teams that are ready to do, those more advanced workflows, we've got the seamless connection to the Insight Connect product there as well.
Nice. All right. Another question about automation here. What sort of automation does IDR offer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So within Insight IDR, we have a number of workflows that are accessible to customers kind of out of the box, if you will. So that includes containing threats on an endpoint, so using the Insight agent to stop a process or quarantine an asset. We've got integrations with case management systems, so you can create a ServiceNow ticket or a Jira issue. We've got integrated carbon black response, so you can isolate a carbon black sensor, as I mentioned. You can suspend user accounts, so you can enable or disable users in Active Directory or with Okta. And then you can also enrich alerts with open source threat intelligence. So this would be things like looking up an IP or domain or a hash, or even it will expand the URLs. So those are the core of the automation capabilities that are offered in Insight IDR today. And we added those ones because, again, we felt like having just the state of the complexity that analysts are facing, having some core automation was a necessity for these teams. So that's in there by default, and anybody has access to it. But again, a lot of customers are starting to look at that Insight Connect solution for a more advanced experience. And for those that have lots of different kind of tools or multiple stakeholders, it's a great way to take things to the next level and really amplify that time savings.
Got it. And then a question here about MDR. Can you kind of walk us through the process when they receive an alert? I mean, what happens after that?
Yeah, so the MDR team, they are really specialists. And so you think about a lot of security teams today and being understaffed or under-resourced. Many security professionals today have to be good at a little bit of everything. And within our MDR team, we have the luxury of being experts at threat detection. And so these guys, like I said, because they're informing so many of the alerts, they understand them really, really well. And they have access to another depth of analytics and information that, our Insight IDR users are not. So as soon as they get alert, they're digging in and figuring out, what needs to happen, or what has happened that's led up to that event. They're able to go through and say, okay, this is something that, this customer needs to act on right away. And we might make a recommendation to that customer of what they need to do next. And in other cases, we'll say, hey, this is something we definitely want to watch, but this isn't cause for alarm yet. This is something that, maybe more in that notable behavior bucket of, okay, we, because of this, are now going to go look into X, Y, and Z, but we're not raising any alarms at this point. So, they're experts at their craft, and you're definitely in good hands with them in terms of threat detection and response.
Okay, excellent. Another question here about, what's usually the trigger point that causes a company to implement a SIEM if they've never had one before?
Yeah.
Why do they start?
That's a good question. And, I think a few years ago it was, we reached a certain size, or, the CISO demanded it or something like that. But I think more and more teams are looking at this technology earlier and earlier because, unfortunately, there's been so many high-profile breaches. And because the threat landscape and attacks are becoming so much more prevalent, I think that security is more top of mind now for companies, or increasingly top of mind for companies. And I think, when you look at different frameworks and MITRE and NIST and all of those different things, like, to execute on them well, you need a tool that helps you do a lot of these things. And I think for teams that are really interested in threat detection and response, we've got a lot of traction in that we make it, like I said, very easy to get up and running, and then easy to continue to grow your security posture. So you can get in and start tracking and seeing or having visibility across the environment right away, and then you can get more and more into the threat detection, and you can start to experiment with those workflows, and as you invest more, you get more out of it. And so I think it's just like the way the market is moving, that this is on more companies' radar probably earlier than it would have been a few years ago. And
Very cool. Yeah, this reminds me when I put in my first IPS system, and initially got like 10,000 new alerts, and then it's like, well, that's cool, but what do I do now? It sounds like
Right.
This tool will really, really help us to analyze and know what to do next, and especially if they choose to put in MDR to provide management of detection and response. Let's see, another question here. I mean, say somebody wanted to get started with Rapid7. Can you kind of walk us through what they would need? I mean, most people have signed up for some sort of SaaS solution before, put in your name and email and such, but what happens after that?
Yeah, so, there's, like I said, going back to that point of we want people to be able to consume our products and evaluate them and experience them in a way that's right for them and makes sense for their business. And so across the Insight Cloud portfolio, you'll find free trials for most of our products. We also regularly do demos of the products each month. So there's no shortage of information on our website, rapid7.com, about each of the products. And then, of course, if you want to talk to somebody, we are happy to get on the phone. So there's a contact us form at rapid7.com that folks can use that would prefer to do maybe a live demo or talk to somebody in person. And obviously, we love to hear from the community about what they're seeing and understand, how our products can potentially help them advance security in their organization. So.
Okay. Excellent. Let's see. A few more questions for you before I let you go. I want to make sure we get all these questions answered. You've been doing a great job with tons of tough questions here.
Great.
Another question around 2020, actually, a visionary high-level question. What do you see happening in 2020? I mean, with security in general and Rapid7 as well.
Yeah, so, I think with Rapid7, we have lots of exciting things on the roadmap. One that I'll mention, we acquired a company called NetFort in April of this calendar year, and they're a network traffic analysis company. We're starting to incorporate more of their technology into our products, and so our customers will see more of that early next calendar year. I think really with the shift and the way the market is moving, it's about that modern environment piece. How am I getting visibility across not just my traditional kind of on-prem assets and my applications and things like that, but how do I know what's happening out there in my cloud and with all of my cloud users and, Office 365, my email and all of those things. And I think we're seeing some friction for other traditional solutions that maybe weren't built to scale in this way. And we're fortunate that, we ourselves were built in the cloud, and our founders and our technology teams were very forward thinking in that area. And so we're excited to kind of take on some of these new challenges with our customers. And we think we're equipping them well to do that.
Excellent, excellent. Great answers, Meg, to a lot of tough questions. Thank you so much for your presentation and the live demo. Thank you for being on the event today.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the time, David. Thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And we look forward to working with you.
Awesome. For more information, of course, visit rapid7.com, sign up for the trial. Also, check out the Rapid IDR product brief that's right there for download in the handouts section. And the question on the screen is, what's your time frame for adding to your existing or selecting a new cloud solution or solutions? So I'll just leave this up on the screen here while hopefully we can connect with Mike from Rubrik and get him on the line for our final presentation. And so I'll just leave that poll question up because we do have a couple of prize announcements here to do. So let's see. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Hermina Murphy from Washington, D.C. Congratulations, Hermina Murphy. You won an Amazon $500 gift card. Hermina Murphy from Washington, D.C. And then we have another Google Pixel Grand Prize going to Todd Key from Ohio. Congratulations, Todd Key from Ohio. You are the winner of our 4th Google Pixel Grand Prize on the event today. So stay tuned because we have another Amazon $500 gift card and another grand prize to give away still after the final presentation. I appreciate everyone answering the poll question there that's on your screen. What's your time frame for adding existing or selecting new cloud solutions? I'll give that another minute up. Let everyone answer that while we connect with Mike.
I'm here, David.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for being on the event.
Sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone who answered that poll. And now it's time for our final presentation on the Cloud MegaCast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Mike Nelson, Solutions Architect at Rubrik. Mike, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm attempting to advance the slides, and they're not, hopefully, there they go. Yes, as David mentioned, my name is Mike Nelson. I am a Solutions Architect at Rubrik, and I'm here to talk about data protection for the hybrid cloud. As you can see here, you can reach me at Nell Media, and I also code as well out on GitHub, just like most of our developer relations and our solutions architect team does. So check us out on GitHub as well. So what I'm going to be talking about is data protection, and I'm not going to be talking about so much from a product point of view, really kind of focusing on what you should be looking at when you're looking at a hybrid type situation in protecting your data. A lot of folks will sit there and say, you know, you need to focus on our product. You need to, but really we need to focus on what is best for you and what you need to be able to protect your data, not only on-prem, but also up in the cloud, in multiple clouds. So I'm going to run through some of this that I think is pretty important for that. So why should you choose cloud data protection? Well, obviously, you know, you need it to protect all of your data, right? Data needs to be portable. As it says, humans do make errors on-prem. As you know, a lot of things are automated in the cloud. And you get that automation being able to protect your data. As you implement data centers, you know, workloads that run on premises, you really, as you have more workloads, you know, the consistent security, but also consistency in data really becomes difficult. And a lot of organizations, when they make that move to the cloud, they don't grasp that. They don't understand the differences and how you can overcome some of those differences. And another one that's really important is that cloud security is a shared responsibility. I've seen it more often than not that someone will go to the cloud, and when they put their workloads up in there, they just figure, well, it's like this SaaS application I got for HR or payroll or what have you. And when they move it up there, it's a situation where they say, oh, it's just taken care of. They take care of backups. They take care of recovery if something goes wrong. They take care of everything for me. That's not necessarily true depending on the workload. So there's more responsibility on the customer side than is what led to be believed by some of the providers. So why is it important? Many of you might know Eric Wright. He's a good friend of mine, and he's actually pointing out a situation here with Azure is when they had an outage with Azure. It really was a situation where it wasn't really, overall Azure's fault. I mean, they had an outage, yes. And it was, something with the data centers and storms and backup power and things like that. But it really comes back to being a design decision, how you actually design your on-prem and your cloud protection. And I'll just make it even for all the providers. Here's one from AWS, and I thought this one was kind of a little bit off track in terms of the generators failed, the backup failed, they killed their EBS servers for AWS, but the cloud is just a computer and resting with a bad power supply. Yeah, that's kind of true, but at the same time, they do have some resiliency built in. It's just that you need to have that resiliency in terms of where your data lies and how you can recover from it, not necessarily the cloud provider, but you as the data owner, as the owner of the data, as the person who needs to jump in there at the 11th hour and pull that stuff out. So, like I said, it's a shared responsibility. The cloud provider just has the foundational services and the infrastructure, but the customer is really around the data, the apps, and the platform. That's pretty much your responsibility unless you subscribe to, some advanced features and pay a little bit more money in the public cloud for those features. And what we see is I'm going to take Azure as the example here, is we see some specific protection use cases. Automated data protection, we use a policy engine, an SLA policy engine, to drive that automation of protecting the data. And it runs a complete life cycle of the data from creation to expiration, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We do the, file level recovery. There's so many instances when I was an administrator where I had to get in and, this user, I deleted this important file, I deleted this financial data, I need to get that file, I need to get it back. Well, the hardest part of recovering those files was searching for it, trying to find out where it was, what tape it was on, when it was actually backed up, so on and so forth. So it's really difficult. And then there's, being able to take a machine, a workload, if you will, and then be able to put it somewhere else, to put it in a different region even. You've got a workload that's in US West, and in US West, you're like, but I need it to be closer to my developers. So I want to reinstantiate that VM or that workload in US East, where it's much closer in proximity, but also maybe because that's where most of your flow is coming from, your customer flow. And then having some kind of unified data management. This is really the nirvana of having a single pane of glass to manage all of your data, to protect all of your data, and to recover all of your data. I don't necessarily believe that exists yet, but there are a lot of vendors that are getting close to that. So the design for data protection, in my opinion, is first you have to remove the roadblock. Remove data protection as a roadblock. And what I mean by that is stop thinking about data protection not as just a convenience, and you have to think of it as an asset. It really has to get into that mindset in your organization. Simplify the lifecycle management process. Have a cloud strategy. This is said a lot around different ideals and products and things like that. But you need to create a control plane, okay, like I mentioned, where you can go cross region, cross localities, and have a single view, if you will. But then also take advantage of some efforts that were done on-prem, because some things can be brought from on-prem up into the cloud, but there are things that cannot without either a refactor or being redone or, being helped a little bit, if you will, because they weren't born in the cloud. And there's some things that just have to be born in the cloud in order for it to work effectively. And then finally, integration, infrastructure as code. I think infrastructure as code is vitally important to maintaining a safe and reproducible infrastructure that is consistent across all platforms. So I kind of emphasize that as well. And one thing is you can't rely on the heroics of individuals to scale the needs in the business. So when the IT operations person comes in on their horse and says, hey, I'm going to take care of all this, I'm going to save the day, you can't rely on that when you're moving into a hybrid scenario or even a full cloud scenario. So the current state, as I see it, is right now you basically are building infrastructure, and then it kind of goes all over the place, right? You have jobs, you have tasks, and this is all with legacy type of not only infrastructure, but also solutions that are taking care of your data management. And when you actually get to retire, okay, one piece that I think is missing that is critically important, even more nowadays than before, is the ability to rehydrate the data. Because with some legacy systems, you can't do that effectively. You can't even do it within a reasonable time frame. So you have to be able to rehydrate that data quickly. And then also there's this thought that there's some magical rainbow, some leprechaun that's sitting inside of your data center that's taking care of all this for you. And possibly, you close your eyes to the thought that, we're going to have to recover this data someday, especially in a hybrid scenario, because you don't know if you'll be able to recover that data from the cloud if you're really not paying attention or have a solid plan around it. So remove the roadblock. Basically, you're just going to build it again, but you're going to actually put it into what we call SLA domains, where everything is organized and everything is controlled by a set of policies. Then you'll be able to retire and rehydrate without a problem, and instantly and automatically. So this is what it looks like from our standpoint of what we call the global SLA domain. And we call it a global SLA domain because it really is about, in our Polaris SaaS platform that controls all of our on-prem structure and cloud infrastructure. So we do make an appliance and a physical appliance and a virtual appliance that can go on-prem, but we also make a virtual appliance that can go up in the cloud, and then we have the Polaris platform that can kind of globally control and have a single pane of glass, if you will, into all of that infrastructure. And this is what it looks like when you're doing a global domain SLA. It's pretty simple. And the things that you have to focus on here is the RTO value. That's your source retention. You want to look at your long-term retention, which is your archival retention. Okay, where is it going to go to from an archive standpoint? And then finally, your disaster recovery, and you're just replicating. That's all you're doing. You can replicate from cluster to cluster, and the clusters don't even have to be in the same physical location to do that. Step 2 is going to be the lifecycle management. In the lifecycle management, you're looking at an instance where you want to be able to take that and have a central point that is going to manage all those instances of data that's moving into the SLAs and then going through the life cycle of, moving through into retirement and rehydration, or from storage tier to storage tier, so on and so forth. So when we look at lifecycle management, dynamic rules are number 1. Okay, that really helps with the parent-child relationships. They're dynamic. And then you have metadata, which are protection-based, workload characteristics that are based around the metadata around the backup itself, or snapshots. And then workload data, okay, an automated part, okay, retains the SLA domain association even after being retired, what we call a relic. But then also you come back to the SLA domain policies. And that's where we can actually define whether it's going to go to hot, cool, or archive storage, or, if you're speaking in AWS terms, Glacier, or however, it's going to go. So there really is no concept of deep provisioning, eliminating half the problem when you're talking about the lifecycle management. So in a retirement scenario, okay, we basically had let me get my click right here. I created a situation where I created a test server, and I was testing the install of software. This is a common scenario where I took 3 on-demand snapshots. Now, this is a kind of the manual and dynamic part of lifecycle management, because what I'm doing is I'm actually taking the on-demand. The SLA, there's really no SLA involved here. And I'm able to do that and recover to any point in time. Okay, kind of like vSphere snapshots, right? But you get a little bit more control over it. All right, because we actually retain the data until the policy dictates otherwise. Then we get into an actual solution, example solution that we invoke for lifecycle management when we talk about tiering. And what we do in the Rubrik Archive tiering in version 5.1 is we have something called smart tiering. And what that does is that actually takes the data and puts it into a hot tier, okay, or a cool tier, and it will move that data automatically for you at the most cost-effective scenario. So there are limitations, and when you move things into the colder tiers, right, they penalize you for taking that data out early. In this example, this is Azure's example. And we don't move that data until it's really cost effective. We're trying to save you money on that. But we're also trying to make sure that your data is put into the correct tier for long-term retention. And then we have something called instant tiering, where we take the data, put it into the hot tier temporarily, and then move it right over the archive tier. Now, as you'll see on this diagram, you'll notice that it says the APIs are not available from Microsoft yet. The APIs are available internally to Microsoft for some features that they have announced and that they are using, but they haven't made them public yet. So, like in an instance scenario, we'd be able to go directly from your data to the archive tier, but we can't do that yet via APIs. So we have to use that hot tier as an intermittent and then move it over to the archive. But as soon as Microsoft opens it up, we'll be doing that. And then also you can interact with actual lifecycle management, like as an example, Azure Storage Lifecycle Management. So have a cloud strategy. Again, this diagram, this is kind of the current state. If you look at it, you're creating scripts, you're creating cron jobs even. You have a bunch of tools out there because you're doing on-prem and the cloud at the same time. And you're trying to understand policies, different policies between cloud and on-prem, like it's shown here. And some of them just don't match. They don't line up to the operational objectives of what you need, compliance or audit-wise or things like that. Again, there's some magical thing that's happening up there that's taking care of everything for you, right? No, not really. Not unless you put it there or you actually configure it. So this is what we want to look at it from a desired state. Again, using SLAs, being able to put those in organized units. Now, again, like I said, not necessarily maybe a Rubrik solution. I'm focusing on Rubrik solution, but it's an overall design consideration. Is putting them into an SLA type of scenario where you can organize them and have them all be able to be protected for a certain time frame. And then using APIs to do that. Talk directly to the cloud via APIs. That is optimal. So at Rubrik, we do have the cloud offerings. We have something called Cloud Out, which is archiving to the cloud. We have something called Cloud On, which is our instantiation, which will just basically take a machine that you've or a VM that you've backed up and be able to instantiate that into another instance up in the cloud. We have something new that's coming out that's called App Flows, and that's actually our DR orchestration. I'm not going to show much about that today. Go build it out here a little bit. And then we have our cloud native protection that works for AWS and Azure, where we actually back up in the cloud. We never even touch on-prem. It's from cloud to cloud, and it's very cost effective and it's very efficient. So cloud native protection with Polaris, we're taking our Polaris SaaS platform. We're using SLA based. It's data born in the cloud, stays in the cloud, no compute resources on the customer account, and it's unified control across multi-cloud. Finally, infrastructure as code. This is really important. I'm not going to build all this out, but basically I'm saying you need a reproducible and safe environment that you can deploy infrastructure to and be able to do it in a manner that can be shared and also self-service within your team and within your business. That's kind of critical to be able to create workloads that not only can be protected up in the cloud, but also on-prem in a hybrid type scenario. And automate everything. I can't say this enough. Integrate with the ServiceNows and the configuration managements with Chef and Puppet and Terraform and infrastructure as code, Splunk, and what have you. And we have a great build.rubrik.com, which we've started up from our developer relations side. And I encourage you to visit that, where we have SDKs and APIs, documentation, and a lot of community-driven stuff that's out there that's really kind of cool, scripts and ideas. And you can contribute. Just go ahead and do a pull request, and you'll be a contributor. So finally, take action with your data, recover it, live mount. We do something called live mounts, where we can live mount data, virtual disks, VMs. We can instantly recover it. We can export VMs. We can even recover from ransomware with our Radar product. So those are all things to take into consideration. So Rubrik's focus, reduce complexity and increase capabilities. That's what it's all about. So finally, don't back up. Go forward with Rubrik. David?
Great presentation, Mike. Really cool stuff. I like the leprechaun as well. So yeah, let's do some questions here. We've got some questions coming in from the audience. While we do that, again, I'm just going to pop up this slide we always do during Q&A. What additional information would you like about the Rubrik solution? So let's see. First question that came in, they're asking about why not just use the backup solutions that cloud providers offer? What's your take on that?
Sure. And realistically, using the solutions like, I'll give you an example that, from an Azure site, using Azure Backup. It is a solution, and they make it really easy. When you go in and create a virtual machine, this is a checkbox, right? And you say, back it up. But if you take a look at it, and you look at it from an architectural overview and how it actually works in the background, you really are limited in what you can do. And this is true for other public clouds as well. You need to understand exactly what you're doing. Like, there are limitations on the number of backups you can do. There's limitations on, you can't just take it on-prem. We have the ability to take it from the cloud and put it on-prem if you're like, I want my backups in my data center. We have that ability, where with Azure you do have that ability, but you've got a bunch of infrastructure and you're expanding into what they call DPM, right? Their protection on-prem solution. And, you have more infrastructure you have to build out in order to satisfy that. So I encourage you to take a look at what's being offered and what the capabilities are, and compare them to different solutions that you might be looking at, including Rubrik. And I'm sure we'll be able to provide you a one-on-one comparison if you'd like.
Excellent. Let's see, another question here that came in. They're asking about, can you tell me a bit about costs when it comes to paying for cloud protection? How does that work with Rubrik?
That's a loaded question, really, because if you think about it, obviously we have the cost for our software, and I to be honest, I don't know what the costs are. I'm not on that side of the house. But when you think about it, it's not only when you're dealing in a hybrid situation, you're obviously not tied to a cost factor when you're putting that data up there, right? What they do is when you're taking the data out, okay, or you're creating IOPS on a disk up in the cloud, or you're doing something that creates activity, that's where the consumption is. And that's where you start paying quite a bit. Now, it's all dependent on your workloads. If you're only protecting a few VMs, obviously the cost isn't going to be that high. If you're protecting an entire infrastructure or a workload like a SQL database, or something that's a little bit larger, when you talk about NoSQL and getting into web applications and things like that, there's a lot more activity that happens there, and there's data that goes egress instead of ingress. So to pinpoint that, I mean, you can do estimators and use calculators, but it's more of a art than a science, if you will.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate that honest answer. Yeah. How can we make the cost lower when using cloud for hybrid protection?
Well, when you're using hybrid, obviously, like I said, if you're pushing the data up into the cloud, you're not really incurring a cost that much, except for, you're going directly to a storage account, or you're going directly as a snapshot, you're going directly into a managed disk. So it's not that, even EC2 and the AWS side, you're not really using a lot of consumption there. You get charged for the storage space, obviously, on the hot tier, if you go to the cool tier or the archive tier. But it's when you're actually pulling data out, or you're moving data between the clouds or within the clouds, that's when you're going to start incurring more cost. So if you really want to, make the cloud your backup scenario, your archive scenario. That's going to be a less cost for you than actually doing that, or from cloud to cloud, like you mentioned with our Polaris platform, than actually trying to do it with VMs and disk activity and things like that. Stick with the managed stuff. That's less expensive. But like I said, try and use the cloud for your protection.
Nice. Okay. Another question here, John's saying our main concern is around security and compliance. How can you help with that?
Well, everything that we do from our product standpoint, we do what's called immutable data. So you don't have the ability to change that data once it's actually captured and put into put into a snapshot. And everything that's transmitted is transmitted via SSL with, your own encryption keys or our encryption keys, however you want that done. But that is all that's all secure in a hybrid type situation. Now, obviously, if you're going over VPN, you're going over the internet really with a VPN, right? You just got a tunnel. So I encourage everyone to kind of get that direct connection up into those clouds if they're really concerned about security. I'm sure if you're that concerned, you probably have some compliance or regulatory or even some security folks that are sitting there going, yeah, we really don't trust the internet that much, or we don't even really trust VPNs that much. So maybe we want to get, an express route connection up in Azure and have that direct connection. That's where your security is going to be. And then once your data is actually up there, it's automatically encrypted. I mean, when you put data down on a managed disk, you put it in storage, as an example, in Azure. Azure automatically encrypts that data. So it's pretty secure once it's up there.
Okay, excellent. I don't know if you can answer this one, but what cloud provider do you recommend?
Oh, boy. I'm partial on my history and what my professional career is. I'm really partial towards, the blue side of things, if you will. The sky is blue, the Azure type side of things, because of my my MVP status. I'm a big proponent of it. I'm just learning AWS. I think AWS has a lot of great things. I'm not going to tell you what cloud to use. I can tell you that there are clouds, public clouds out there, especially one that does email for a long time. That is really developer focused, in my opinion. It's really got a lot of things that are great for developers, but for general infrastructure and things, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it is. I'm no expert. I can't tell you what cloud to pick. If I told you a personal opinion, obviously I'd pick one or the other, but it's really what you need. And I got to tell you, I'm running into more customers that are using multi-cloud. I've got more customers that I'm talking to that are like, hey, we've already got this workload up here, or we're paying for this workload over here in a SaaS type solution. Then, can we continue to do that? Absolutely. That is definitely whatever is best usage for your money. You should continue to do that.
Okay. Great advice. Let's see, another question, and this one's from me. What do you recommend people do to get started with Rubrik? What's the first and easiest way to get started?
Sure. I highly recommend that folks obviously can go out and take a look at some of the things that my team has done by going out to the website, looking at the webinars. We've done whiteboard videos. The team that I work on, there's a lot of great people that create that type of content. We have a great team, obviously, of sales folks and SEs out there that can help you out as well. But we also are, part of global events. We had a big presence at Ignite. I actually spoke at Ignite. I spoke at VMworld. We've had, quite a bit of our people do that. We're at all kinds of global events. So if you run into us on the show floor, definitely ask us whatever questions you'd like. And then we do all these types of online virtual events as well. I think we actually hold a webinar about once a month or something like that for folks who just want to get to know Rubrik as well. And you can sign up for that through the resources section of our website.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think that's all the questions we have, but really great presentation. Thank you so much for being on the event today, Mike.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it.
And thank you to Rubrik for presenting today. Make sure you check out the handout that's available for download right there in the audience console, and it covers Rubrik from Microsoft Azure. It's got a lot of details on that, so make sure you download that PDF. And, of course, also visit Rubrik.com for more information. And now it's time for our final prize giveaway. We have an Amazon gift card going to VJ Reddy from Illinois. Congratulations, VJ. And our final grand prize is going to Ryan Cage from Indiana. Congratulations, Ryan Cage from Indiana. Well, I appreciate everyone's participation in today's Cloud MegaCast. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, the 10 on Tech podcast, over in the iTunes store. Don't forget to follow Actual Tech Media over on LinkedIn. That's where we're posting our latest and greatest content. If you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming MegaCast or EcoCast event, and would like to chat, connect with us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And finally, I hope you'll join us on our next event, which is Wednesday, November 20th, next Wednesday, 1 week from today. It's the Storage, Flash, NVMe, and Storage Optimization EcoCast. You can register at events.actualtechmedia.com. And actually, after this event ends, you will be automatically redirected to that website, the events website, where you can register for this event and other upcoming Actual Tech Media events. Thank you so much, attendees. Thank you so much to our loyal audience. We really appreciate your participation on today's event. I learned a lot. I hope that you did too. Have a great day. See you next time.